Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, are you talking to us?
Yeah. I'm talking to the voices in my head. So I'm Marco.
I'm Carolina.
And I am Daniel.
If you're listening to this is a podcast.
Yes.
It's called Feature Length, I think is what we decided on.
The feature length podcast, yes. What is the feature length podcast? Anyone?
The feature-length podcast is a show where three idiots talk about film and entertainment.
Good answer.
I guess I'll be the host. Because technically I have the most podcast experience, technically.
Really?
Hey guys, what's
I
up?
have notes, but they're all just like question marks and exclamation points and like I don't even know what they mean.
Hello listeners.
What
This is
listeners?
a very serious and very novel idea that no one's ever done before.
This is going to be a freewheeling episode for sure.
Oh yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
This is so long. I'm so sorry. Everyone strap in.
So how many discs do you have?
So I have 28 discs of various Friday the 13th movies.
Marco, in 2021, this movie is essentially the Schindler's List of musicals.
Whoa, Marco, Dan, and Carolina in the same Zoom call? What is this, a recording session for the feature-length podcast? Am I Jimmy Stewart in a 1946 Christmas movie? Because it's a wonderful life.
Like I truly don't know. It felt like a fever dream. I swear to God, I could not make this shit up.
It sounds so stupid hearing that.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the Feature Length Podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies and TV for a feature length of time.
I have to praise this movie for representing a victory for passionate filmmakers, regardless of their skill or relatability.
It's so enjoyable. Like, no part of it is dull. I had such a great time.
Like, there's so much to say, but also nothing to say because, like, it's like an amazing movie.
Perhaps that is the best testament to the legacy of any film.
Okay, guys, I have a good way to start off every episode, okay?
Okay.
I found an online star date, like, calculator. Do you guys know what star dates are?
Star
Yeah.
Date? I have no
You know,
idea
Like the
what
Star
that is.
Trek years.
Yeah, you know from, like, Star Trek, every episode, like, the captain's always like, Captain's log, star date, whatever.
Right,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, I found an online converter, so maybe we can start with the... We'll start with the
Star
star
date?
date. Star date minus 301433.
Wow, guys, I just checked the release date of our first episode of the feature-length podcast. Apparently, we've been doing this for a whole year now.
Seriously? It does not feel like it's been a year already.
I think we should definitely focus on a special topic for our 1-year anniversary.
For sure, but like, what could possibly be a feasible choice that's worthy of the 1-year spot? Maybe the Dark Knight trilogy?
Or what about Interstellar?
Ooh, also a good choice. I'm seeing a Christopher Nolan theme here, perhaps.
Wait a minute, guys. The answer is staring us in the face. A classic trilogy that one of us has never fully seen, so it falls in line with our trusty style here on the show.
Okay, so what is it?
Yeah, what is it? One year. That is the amount of time that has passed us by as we have sat here doing God's work of casually discussing entertainment for the masses. Only about half of that is true, but nevertheless, here we are 1 year later. Welcome to the Feature Length Podcast. First and foremost, we would like to send out a huge thank you to anyone listening at all, because as we mentioned after the release of our very first episode, we were expecting 0 viewership, and the fact that we have been getting anything above that is a pleasant surprise. So thank you, dear listeners. This show is above all else a creative outlet for us, and a chance to record the types of conversations we like to have simply as friends anyway. So the FLP has been and continues to be a very fun element of our lives. A year in, and we still look forward to recording new episodes. The show has also been the perfect excuse to watch some films and series we may not have otherwise gotten to, and also some we may have been too embarrassed to watch for any other reason. It's the perfect sweet spot. All in all, we would like to once again thank anyone who has joined us along the way in generously listening to what we have to say. On this special episode, we have decided to talk about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, a series that was both a blockbuster hit and a cult classic for some. Carolina had not seen the last two films before this week, and takes the role of the newcomer to this series. Marco and I are veterans of the trilogy, and have done a recent rewatch in preparation. This is normally the section of the intro where a summary is in order, but I don't think that's really necessary in this case. It's Spider-Man, I'm sure you get the idea. A high school boy gets bitten by a spider, develops superpowers, and ultimately becomes a web-slinging superhero. It is undeniable that Sam Raimi's trilogy helped spark the modern flame that is the world of comic book film adaptations. This series, along with the concurrent X-Men film series of the time, rejuvenated Marvel Studios and was largely responsible for the eventual inception of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The renaissance of superhero films, their expectations, and their production quality has come a long way, and Spider-Man was a big factor in that change. From the moment you first see the flickering comic book Marvel logo and hear Danny Elfman's iconic score, to the moment when Peter Parker eats half a hot dog in one bite, to the moment when Eric Foreman from That 70s Show jumps into an explosion and dies. These movies are classics and are for us a welcome choice for the topic of this episode. We're your hosts, Carolina, Marco, and Daniel, and you're listening to the feature-length podcast. Happy 1 year, guys.
Happy 1 year.
1
If you
year.
have chocolate cigars, crack them open.
That star date took me back.
I know.
I fully forgot about it.
Literally stopped doing it after like the third episode.
Yep.
We really tried.
And it's back.
For another 3 episodes.
Probably.
They're actually eating chocolate cigars for the record.
They're so fucking
I don't know if that's coming through the mic.
Man, it's like
Chew
AMSR
really
for
close, yeah.
EMSR.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Guys, we did it. 1 whole year.
Woo!
Feels good, doesn't it?
It does.
It does.
I mean, we all forgot when the 1 year was.
Yeah.
Well, that's just because it wasn't even like on my radar. I was like,
I thought it
1
was
year,
late
like,
August for some.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
that doesn't even make sense. We've been doing this for a year.
Mm-hmm. I also have
did
a
it.
little idea that we should, like, before we start talking about the movies that we're here to talk about, because we were kind of talking about this in person a little bit. Do you guys want to talk about our favorite and least favorite episodes so far?
Sure.
Just real quick.
Sure.
Oh my god, let me
All right.
pull up our feed.
I will go. Well, I think I know my least favorite because we already kind of talked about it.
We'll do least favorite first.
Least
just
favorite
because, like,
in what way? Like you dislike the episode or the thing we watched?
Just any way that it's your least favorite to listen
Yeah.
to.
Okay.
So for me, the one that was my least favorite, and I'm only basing it on just the recording experience, was when we did Doctor Sleep and The Shining. Just because that's when we were having all the Wi-Fi issues and stuff, and so it was just like an awful experience of constantly like freezing and trying to record that episode.
What a mess.
So yeah, it was a mess. Yeah, so I would say that's my least favorite, but I still think it's a good episode.
Carol, do you want to go next?
Least favorite is so hard. I'm sure there were some that I disliked the most. Okay. I'm going to go with, can I say favorite first? I know we're doing
Sure.
least favorite, but
Okay.
I need to think about
you
it
wanna do your
longer.
favorite first.
I'm switching it up. My favorite is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, simply because I just
Ooh.
remember, like that was our first episode in case anyone didn't know. I just remember the energy when we were recording it. I was like in the smallest room of my home with all the windows closed and the door closed, and I was sweating as if I was in a sauna, but I was having so much fun and I was so
Yeah.
energized. And yeah, I'll never forget that feeling, and I will think about bad memories while I try to pick a bad episode while you guys say the other ones.
Dan?
Okay. My least favorite episode, I was also going to say the Dr. Sleep one like we talked about earlier, but I've actually changed my mind. I think it's the School of Rock episode. Only because with a comedy, and we recognize this, it's kind of hard to not just laugh at the movie. It was a funny movie and we're just kind of laughing along with the jokes. I think it was a different case with our previous episode on Booksmart and Superbad, because we mix it up with two movies that aren't in the same series but share a lot of qualities, and we went into discussion with that a lot. But with the School of Rock episode, it was just the one movie. It was just talking about how funny everything was, and it was a good time, but I think that's why it's my least favorite out of all of our discussions.
Okay, fair enough.
So Marco, what's your favorite then?
It's Mother. That movie
Really?
was
Oh, okay.
so painful to watch, but I just feel like that episode was like the amount of like laughs, like genuine laughs that we had the entire time, and just like the conversation we had, and like just the imagery we were trying to figure out. Yeah, I just think that episode was like so much fun overall, both to record, and just like even just like listening back to it. It's just hilarious.
That was a great episode because there was a lot of laughs, but also a lot of good film discussion. It was a great balance of both.
Yeah.
Okay, so Carol, what's your least favorite?
I think it has to be BoJack Horseman, simply because, which is their latest episode. I mean, I guess maybe not when this comes out. We'll figure
second
it out.
latest, but yeah.
Yeah. Probably BoJack Horseman, because right before it, I was like recording at my friend's house, and I forgot my laptop to record the episode, and so I was just like running back and forth all day, and I was sweaty and chaotic. And so I think just it took me a minute to like get in the podcast recording headspace when I did finally arrive at my recording place with all the necessary items. And then also kind of similarly to the School of Rock thing, because it was a funny show, it was mostly just us like saying jokes, and I think it's still really entertaining. And I do love the episode, probably because I've seen BoJack and I'm able to like just listen to us repeating the jokes and laugh along. But yeah, so that's probably my least favorite, but also still beloved. Beloved?
Maybe? I don't know.
My beloved.
Okay, and my most favorite, I'm a little confused because we've been alternating.
Yes.
My favorite episode is, I think, our Friday the 13th episode.
Ooh.
That is still, like, that's a solid episode.
Yeah. Good times.
Oh,
I forgot we
what a
made
brutal
Carol
film.
watch the first 4 or 5. How
Two.
many did we- You only watched the first 2?
Yeah.
I think that's all I had time for, and you guys were like, that's
Not
fine.
that it matters.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
But
mean,
yeah.
I watched 3. I feel
And
like
I've
I
never seen the
watched
first
more.
one.
oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though? I mean, talking about, since we're like reflecting a little bit, like we started this podcast like as an attempt to like do something and hang out during the pandemic. And now we're at a point where like we can literally, like Dan and I are in the same room recording.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if we mentioned that yet.
Yeah,
didn't.
and also, what was my other point? Oh, the pandemic happened literally right after our Friday the 13th. And now, like, we're vaxxed and starting to hang out. And there's a Friday the 13th coming out.
Oh,
March-
like
Friday,
the real
March
Friday the
13th.
13th.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was like, no, the pandemic was happening long before
Yeah,
that
the
episode
one before
came
that.
out.
Yeah, because I was here at Marco's with our friend Angelo watching
Yeah.
the Friday the 13th movies shortly before it all went down. That's right.
Oof.
And we were like, and then we looked in one of our old chats and we're like, all right, guys, so like in March or whatever, there's another Friday the 13th. Let's plan to continue the series then. And that's when everything
Yeah.
went to shit.
It was
so.
really funny, yeah.
But
Should we talk about Spider-Man?
yeah, I think it's finally time.
Should we?
We've done enough reflecting.
Okay, I would like to kick this off. I know typically we let the person who hasn't seen the thing kick it off, but I know Carol's gonna shit on this, so I just let me get out my happy thoughts.
You don't
and then we can shit on the franchise. So listen. I cannot speak objectively about these movies. It is like, it's impossible for me to have a conversation about these movies and not relate back to the first time that I watched a movie, like superhero movie, but also a movie, was literally like Spider-Man in the theaters. Like Spider-Man 2002 with Tobey Maguire is the first movie that I ever saw.
Huh.
Yeah, that was my first.
Wait, it was the first movie you ever saw in theaters ever?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, that was my main one. So yeah, like I obviously have a lot of nostalgia for this franchise, so that's what makes it hard for me to talk about it objectively. But I think these movies are a lot of fun, and also the thing that I think about them that I want to say that is positive is like, I think Sam Raimi specifically was trying to go for like an adaptation of like 1960s Stan Lee original like soap opera Spider-Man. And I think like he nails that, and you know, it's silly, but like I think it's intentionally silly. And then also the other thing is just like Dan, you were alluding to like when this movie came out and how influential it was. Like for me, I think of superhero movies in terms of like pre-Chris Nolan and post-Chris Nolan. And I feel like this is the best pre-Chris Nolan type of superhero movie. Because like pre-Chris Nolan, they were all about like, let's take the experience of reading a comic book and putting it on film. And I feel like post-Chris Nolan, it was about, let's take like a distillation of these characters and put that on film, which I think makes for like better movies and like like actual movies with like characters that like grow and have like plots that make sense. But in terms of like the pre-era of just trying to capture like what the comic books feel like and putting them on screen, I feel like this one still to me is like the best version of it in terms of, I think it nails like 1960s cheesy, silly Spider-Man. And I love these movies, and I watch these movies all the time, and I know that they don't age well, and Macy Gray's in the first one, and there's a Nickelback song at some point, and, you know, I get all that, I totally get all that, I know all the performances are cringy and awful, like, I am fully aware, but I just think for what they were trying to go for, and the time period it came out, and obviously, like, having that connection to it, I love watching these movies, I watch these movies all the time. And I think there is something like special, and I also do think, like Dan, you brought up X-Men, for example, the original X-Men trilogy. Like, I couldn't show my 14-year-old brother the X-Men trilogy. He would be bored out of his fucking mind. He'd be like, what are we watching right now? Like, they're so, like, they don't work in a modern way. Even like Chris Reeve's Superman, which I think is great, I tried showing it to him, and he could not get into it. Like Batman 89, he was kind of like, he's like, what? Like, this isn't Batman. Like, what is this? This is weird. But this is the only one that I feel like, even though he's seen MCU Spider-Man, like, he can still go back to this and appreciate it because it is such its own specific thing, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I like to say that. And then I'd also, just the last thing I like to say, it is kind of unfortunate that because this movie so literally adapted, like, that part of Spider-Man and like Spider-Man's origin and yada yada, that every reboot we've gotten has had to like sidestep that, and it's kind of fucked with those movies. I think the MCU has done a decent job like in terms of getting around that, but like the Andrew Garfield movies,
Yeah.
like they were literally, those movies are stylistically designed to just be the not Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and it's not, yeah, it doesn't work.
They were kind of doomed to fail.
Exactly. So, anyway, those are my thoughts. Go ahead.
Okay, so do we want to, now that we've flipped the script on its head, do we want maybe Dan to go, and then I'll tie it all together with my thoughts that may not be as
first time?
Nice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not as nostalgic, I'll just say that.
Yeah, I think I'll make a nice...
Bridge.
Exactly, because like I certainly don't hate these movies. I love the existence of these movies. Mostly for ironic reasons, but nevertheless. I've watched these movies a bunch of times. It was the first superhero series I've ever watched. I can't say it's the first movie I've ever watched in a theater, but definitely the first superhero series I've ever watched. And you brought up X-Men again. When I was a kid, I definitely didn't care about the X-Men series. Yeah. But this one, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, I really cared about. I appreciate some things unironically about these movies. I do appreciate, like, it goes without saying, out of all Spider-Man live action adaptations, these have been the most stylized from their director, 100%. And for the record, my favorite live action Spider-Man is Tom Holland. So even like me being a Tom Holland Spider-Man fan, I can appreciate Sam Raimi stylized his Spider-Man movies the most out of any director so far. So I love that. It never feels like, for example, Venom, just a generic comic book movie that is like just so shit.
Like a cash grab.
Yes. It never felt like a cash grab, even though these movies made a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Sometimes the writing does feel a little bit generic. Like maybe more so when you take off the rose-tinted goggles. Especially on this last rewatch, that came through a lot, and we'll talk about that. But style-wise, you have to appreciate the work that was done here. But in pretty much every other regard, not everything has aged too well. I mostly just watch these movies now with a group of friends to like laugh at all of the memes. Yes. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now, and we'll finish off with Carol's new coming opinion.
Yeah, so I had only seen the first film in this franchise, and actually I had only seen it like a few months ago, no, maybe January, so like half a year ago, because I was on I don't know if this is TMI for a podcast, but it was a virtual date with a dude, and he said this was his favorite movie ever. I don't think I went on any virtual dates with him after. Not because of this movie, but it didn't help. Yeah, so I saw the first one, and it was long. Also, I think because I did see the Andrew Garfield ones when they came out, so he wasn't even like the first Spider-Man I knew, but like Tom Holland is definitely what I like picture when I think of a movie Spider-Man now, simply because even just like the age seems right. Like obviously I'm not a big comic book person, so I'm not like he has to be in high school. Like I don't know, I don't care about it that much, but it's weird to see a 27-year-old or whatever the fuck Tobey Maguire was walking through this high school,
a 40-year-old man,
like fighting other like 26-year-old men. And we're supposed to pretend that they're, like, graduating.
I know.
It's really hard to get over. And it's not even, like, they're doing it in a campy way. Like, they really want us to believe that they're young, and I think that made it worse. And also, like, why are his aunt and uncle so old?
Yeah, that's
they're
a
like
comic book holdover. Yeah, that makes no sense. It's like
they're not his grandparents.
Yeah, it's so weird because it's like Stan Lee wants them to be his grandparents, but like he likes the sound of like Aunt May and Uncle Ben better, but it doesn't make any sense.
Like
I know,
in
they're
my notes,
so
I kept writing like Grandpa and Grandma, and I had to like go back and erase it to change it to Aunt. Anyway, yeah, so like the ages were weird, and I felt that like Spider-Man and Mary Jane didn't have any chemistry at all.
Yes.
And I feel like the only person who did a good job acting-wise was Green Goblin in the first one. Yep. I mean, honestly, it was usually the villains that did a good job, and everyone else, not great. So that was also tough to get around.
Absolutely.
I'm a sucker for any movie set in New York, so, like, at least that got me, like, kudos to them for that.
That's only, like, 90% of movies.
But yeah, so, like, they were fine. They felt like they were never ending, and I feel like that's never a good sign. So that's why I can't come out and say I loved them and had a great time. They were funny because I was like laughing at them, but obviously that wasn't the point. So also not a point to the movie. But like I understand why like kids growing up with this as their Spider-Man would have enjoyed it. Obviously me coming to it as a 24-year-old woman with no attachment to Spider-Man was going to have a different experience. So, you know, they kind of had that against them. But they were good. They were funny. I now understand the memes. But Spider-Man 3 made me want to die. We'll get into it.
So, let me just say, first of all, I don't disagree with anything you just said, Carolina. Like, everything you said.
I didn't think you would. I understand.
Yeah. I will say one thing that I don't know, like I don't know how to feel about either way, is like you said, you don't know if these movies are like intentionally like trying to be laughed at, and I think they might be. Like as a kid, I don't think so. I think these movies operate on this level, which is when you're a kid, these are like fucking this most serious, dramatic, like what's Peter gonna do, like superhero movies. But I kind of do think like, going back to the idea that like Stan Lee always thought of Spider-Man as just like a dumb soap opera. That was like his whole idea.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Sam Raimi intentionally made these movies like kind of dumb because again, like these movies came out at the time of X-Men, which was all about, and Blade, which were all about like fucking serious, like this is like serious superhero, like serious quote unquote superhero movies, and this movie goes so far in the other direction, and Sam Raimi is like so well known for like campy horror movies and stuff that I almost feel like it is supposed to be dumb. Like, the raindrops are falling on my head sequence is a joke. Like, that is, you're supposed to laugh at that. And I feel like a lot of the things you are supposed to laugh at. The memes? No. I mean, you can't predict that those would have been, like, I'm something of a scientist myself. That was an intentional joke, but it's become a joke. But I think a lot of the camp is probably on purpose. Not that it, like, excuses anything, but like you're saying, Dan, I think it's a stylistic choice, and I think this era of superhero movies was way more concerned with, like, style over character substance. So I think that... Also, I just want to point out, like, I have no problem defending that I think there are legitimately good things in Spider-Man 1 and 2. Not consistently, but I think there are good moments. Spider-Man 3 is a dumpster fire. There is, like,
is. It really is.
I can unironically enjoy parts of Spider-Man 1 and 2. I really can. We talked about this and we'll get into it, but, like, the origin aspects of Spider-Man 1, I think they hold up.
Yeah, we have to talk about that for sure.
Spider-Man 2, like, in general, the plot mechanics and the villain and all that, I think that holds up decent. J. Jonah Jameson, great.
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, he realistically has the best performance out of anyone.
That being said, though, and, like, we'll get into all that, but, like, once you get to Spider-Man 3, it is just, like, I only can watch that movie for the memes. Like, there's nothing else in that movie. It exists on no other level. And, like, I don't know if you guys know any of the behind the scenes. Like, when we get there, we can talk about it. It's just sad. It's just sad what happened.
Yeah, like, with the company forcing...
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that when we get there. Also, though, Carol, before we jump into the movies now, how excited are you for the live-action Spider-Verse movie that's definitely going to happen with Tom Holland and Tobey and Andrew? That's going to be fucking rad.
I'm very excited for that. I mean, if I was Tobey Maguire, I don't know if I'd sign up for it, but it will be hilarious to watch.
I am so pumped. Oh my god, it's going to be so good. It's going to be so good.
If only a trailer would come out.
It's not. Yeah, don't worry.
All right, anyway.
Into the
back
films,
to the actual... Yeah. So, okay, like with every series we talk about, I guess we'll try and start to go in order. It's going to fall apart, I'm sure, by like halfway through. But starting with the first movie, do we want to talk about, because we were mentioning the origin stuff, I think we should start there.
Okay, let's go for it.
So when Marco and I were watching this last week, I think,
Crazy
we were talking about... Pardon?
That was before we knew we were doing this episode. Wild.
I know.
Yeah, I know. We just, like, happened to.
Well, we had all these, like, during COVID, we came up with, like, a list of things that we needed to watch and we could hang out.
Yeah, so and that was at the top of the list.
That was the top of the list, yeah.
But Marco made a good point of, and this is something I've never, especially as a kid, never, like, paid attention to or anything, but the first movie does a good job executing on the origin stuff a lot. Not all of it. Like, we also talked about when we were watching, we're like, wow, it really rushes through Peter before getting bit by the spider. Like, that happens, like, right away. Faster than I remember it happening. So we kind of wished that it spent more time with normal Peter to, like, then when you have Peter, like, turning into Spider-Man, it's more of a transition. It's, like, more of a contrast. But it does really rush into that.
But then the movie would have been longer. It was already so
long.
Well, that's true. Like other stuff. They should have cut out other stuff.
Exactly, yeah. Like maybe the Macy Gray part.
Yeah, maybe that entire Macy Gray sequence.
But the actual origin, like when we get to the Uncle Ben dying and stuff, and like that whole sequence is really exciting, and that sort of stuff is done actually pretty well. We also have to mention, though, this is the only Spider-Man adaptation without web shooters. So, like, as a kid, I really didn't care because I didn't know the difference. And, like, I didn't know the difference because I didn't even know that Spider-Man from the comics didn't have, or, like, had web shooters. I thought this was, like, how he actually was in the comics. Like, he had organic webbing.
Me too.
That was only something that I realized growing up and when the new Spider-Man movies came out that he, like, had to invent them, which I prefer. I prefer him using his intelligence to, like, make another superpower for himself, I guess. But Marco, you had a good point when we were watching.
Yeah, no, I just, like, I'm with you because this was my first introduction to, like, not just Spider-Man but superheroes, right? But so I always thought he had organic, and it wasn't until when I was a little bit older and I started watching, like, the 90s, like, animated series that I realized he had web shooters. And it's a little weird to me just because it's like he has all the powers of a spider, but also he needs to, like, create this one other thing for himself. And I get what you're saying, and, like, in a modern context of, like, using that as a character beat of, like, him making the web cheaters shows how smart he is, that's fine. But it's just weird to me that, like, in 1960 when Stan Lee was writing it, and, like, that was not at all the intention. Like, look how smart he is. It's just, like... And also, he had to create, like, webs for himself, because he just didn't get webs. And it was just, I don't know, it's a weird choice. And I totally get why, in, like, your first live-action adaptation, they would be like, let's just do away with it. Like, let's just cut that out. He gets bit by a spider, he gets the spider powers.
Yeah,
no,
no,
I
agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, my whole thing is, why couldn't Stan Lee write it so that he could make webs, but maybe he needs something to propel them like he does? Because, like, spiders don't shoot their webs, you know, across a whole city. So I would understand if it was like he needs to find a way to propel this stuff. But the fact that he couldn't make it at all doesn't seem like it should be part of the canon. But obviously we're not actually talking about the comics. We're talking about the films. And, like, good job for the films for changing it for one movie.
Yeah, one series. Dude, if all the Spider-Man meet, you know there's going to be a moment where Tobey's going to be like, oh, you guys need web shooters? Like, I just, like, shoot the webs. Yeah, but what you were talking about, like, I think the majority of the origin stuff in this is pretty good. Like we said, because, like, we don't spend as much time with Peter before he gets bit, all the, like, Peter's getting bullied is rushed into, like, one scene, and it's so freaking weird.
It's so shallow, too.
Yeah, it's so shallow.
Doesn't he do a backflip?
After
he's
bit. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's an insane scene. But also, I think one that I had seen before watching the movie, because I remember when I did watch it, I was like, oh, this seems familiar. I still don't like it, but it seems familiar.
Well, you know what I don't like about it? It's not that he does a backflip. It's that he does, like, 6 rotations in the air before he... Like, if he just flipped over him, I would be totally fine with him. But he's, like, fucking sitting up there flipping, like, clearly on wires. And it's like, it looks like shit.
Yeah. But, guys, he's learning his powers.
Yeah, he's learning his powers.
I don't care how strong you are. You can't levitate in the air and do that.
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of, like, I think the origin stuff that works mostly is just, like, most of the character beats in terms of the origin stuff. And like you talked about, like, it really hits the moments, like the great power, great responsibility moment, which is, like, as iconic to Spider-Man as, like, Batman falling down the well. You know what I mean? Like, it is, like...
Or his parents dying.
Or his parents. That was a better analogy. Yeah, his parents. I don't know why I picked falling down the well.
I guess that's more comparable to Uncle Ben dying.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, like, I feel like they nail that, and they nail it, like, so well that then when you get to, like, Amazing Spider-Man, there's just a 20-minute scene where Martin Sheen is like, sometimes people can do things, and if they do things, they have a moral obligation to do them, because if they don't do them, then maybe bad things that are immoral would happen. And it just goes on for, like, 20 minutes, and it's like, oh, you just don't want to say the line, but also, like, just say the line. It's fine. You know, it's an iconic line. Like, why would you not say the line?
And that's why, because none of the other Spider-Man movies use it, and that's why when we were watching, I turned to Marco and I was like, is the great power, great responsibility line from the movie? And he was like, no, that's from the comics. I'd always thought it was from the Sam Raimi movies because it's the only one that's ever used that. So I'm confused why all the other movies refuse to use it if it was a comic thing and not like the Sam Raimi thing.
I have no idea. And it's weird because I feel like the Spider-Man movies in particular have taken this stance of, like, if the Tobey Maguire movies did it,
we will
not do it. You know what I mean? We have to be different.
But it's so weird because character, like
yeah. Well, you look at, like, other iterations of, like, characters, other iterations of James Bond, other iterations of Batman, other iterations of Superman. Like, yeah, things change, but, like, Batman's parents always die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there are certain, like, great power, great responsibility, like, is the iconic comic book standout from the Spider-Man origin. So I don't know why they don't carry it over. It's a weird, like, I get in the MCU because they're just, like, bypassing that. It's like, he's Spider-Man. Like, he's already here. Like, we don't want to deal with it. This is
past his origin, sure.
Yeah, but the Andrew Garfield movies, it's a weird choice.
And even, like, on that note of, like, if the Tobey Maguire movies did it, we can't. Like, I don't think... Because, okay, Green Goblin was obviously the villain of the first one. Then Doc Ock. Then Venom and Sandman and Hobgoblin. New Goblin, whatever.
New Goblin, and it's not Hob... It's New Goblin.
And then you go to the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and it's Lizard and
Electro.
Right.
And the Green Goblin.
Okay, so there was a repeat there, but like, and then the Tom Holland one.
Dane DeHaan turns into the Green Goblin.
It's not really. It's like he's kind of the Green Goblin, kind of the Hobgoblin.
He's just like an ugly
He's
monster.
hairy.
Yeah.
Like he's Harry. I almost said Harry Potter. He's Harry Osborn.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a goblin. Harry.
You're a goblin, Harry.
Okay. Anyway, and then the Tom Holland one is Vulture.
Yeah.
And then Mysterio. So like, besides that repeat of the Green Goblin, every single villain has been different, and that I think that kind of goes along with they never want to like homage these past movies. I can understand why they wouldn't want to with the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but even with these Tobey Maguire ones, like they just want to completely forget that they existed.
Yeah.
Whereas we would have a lot more fun, and hopefully this Spider-Verse movie does come to fruition, like we're assuming it is. But like we would have so much more fun acknowledging these movies, even just like a little wink moment.
Oh, absolutely.
All the fans would love that, I'm sure.
And I think it goes a long way, like, because I know there is like so much contention on the internet between Spider-Man fans for some reason. Even though I think everyone can kind of agree that like MCU is like objectively the best well made. Toby like started it all. We have a lot of respect for it, whatever. Andrew...
Always the worst.
Always the worst. Unfortunately, because it has such a good cast, but always the worst. But yeah, it's like there is this weird thing of like, we can't acknowledge the other franchises. It's so weird.
Like, it feels like they're not all owned by the same people.
I know!
Like, there's a rights issue, but there isn't.
That's the weird thing, too, is like, I know Marvel is like creatively in charge of the MCU Spider-Man, but Sony Studios has produced and like made Toby, Andrew, and Tom Holland. Yeah. How is that even possible?
So different.
Yeah.
But all produced by the same people.
What I will say, though, to your point, one thing with the villains that I might like kind of understand, at least with some of them, like with Green Goblin and Doc Ock, like those were such iconic performances, I feel like.
Yeah.
That like I could
guess.
kind of understand on one of those two, but it's weird to me, like Sandman. Like, that's an iconic Spider-Man character that is, like, the third-string villain in Spider-Man 3. You could have totally used him again. And it's also kind of funny because, like, Amazing Spider-Man's first villain is the Lizard, who was, like, constantly hinted at in Tobey movies.
Well, he was going to be the next one.
Yeah, he was going to be... And then also, Tom Holland's first movie is Vulture, and there is literally concept art from Spider-Man 4, like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 4, that was, like, in pre-production before Sony canceled it. And Sam Raimi, like, found out he was fired, and the Vulture and Mysterio were going to be, like, villains.
Wait, Sam Raimi was fired?
Yeah.
On IMDb, it says he stepped down.
No.
We'll get there. Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay, IMDb lied on a few counts. We'll also get there. I have some weird facts that they had on there that are very untrue.
Yeah.
Okay, but real quick, just because you mentioned Mysterio, also, the Bruce Campbell role in all of the 3 Sam Raimi movies was leading up to a Mysterio thing as well.
Yeah.
Wait, which one was Bruce Campbell?
He's the guy that, like, shows up in each... Like, he's the, like, ring announcer in the first one. He's the guy, the usher, and then the maitre d' in the third one.
Gotcha. So that was all going to be the same person.
He was the maitre d' at that French restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh, that fucking dude. Oh my god. I have notes about him.
My favorite... I know we're jumping ahead, but my favorite line from that scene is when, like, Peter's telling him his plan, and he just goes, "Oh, how romantic. I am French." And it's just like, what does that even fucking mean? Like, okay.
I like when he... First of all, I like when he blows the whistle and the pen comes to him on the little thing.
Yeah.
But I also like when he takes the ring and goes, "Hello." He, like, taps it.
Oh, it's so good.
Anyway, that's Spider-Man 3. We're jumping ahead.
Let's finish up the origin stuff. Here's what I like from the origin stuff, and you guys throw in there if you agree or disagree, okay? I appreciate the scene where he catches all the food with MJ.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Tobey Maguire did that in real life. That was a real stunt. So cool. I have a lot of respect for that. Although, Carol, like you mentioned, Tobey and Kristen Dunst have, like, the least chemistry I've ever seen of 2 actors on film.
It was bad.
And... yeah, it's just terrible, those performances. But I like that scene. And then the scene that, like, always gets me, and we talked about this, because it's literally, like, my earliest memory in life, is, like, the scene where he runs into the alley and, like, figures out he can climb the wall. Yeah. I just feel like that scene is like so perfectly paced in terms of like even with the music sting of like he puts his hand on the wall and like the bump, and then like he slowly climbs up the wall, and even the camera reveal because it's like from up and then it comes down and you see him, but then it gets really cringy because he does the woo and he just starts like jumping around. But like the first part of that I think is cool. I like him failing at the web slinging and slamming into the wall.
That's a staple of any origin thing, yeah.
The great power, great responsibility whole conversation with his uncle is, I think, like, objectively just the best written scene and best acting in the movie. Like, it just, like, or maybe not, like, best individual performance, but, it, like, just in terms of, like, chemistry between two actors, I really, like, buy them in that scene. And then, obviously, his death, and then the height moment of him, like, going to chase the guy, and, like, having to web sling for the first time, hunting this guy down. It's just great. It's such great, like, origin, like, hero's journey stuff. I really love it.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite scene. Like, genuinely my favorite scene in the first movie is that chasing down the robber that shot Uncle Ben scene. But because you mentioned, the hero's journey thing, I might be mentioning this a bit early because this is something to do with the end of the movie, but you made a really good point of Spider-Man doesn't really use anything at the end.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't use anything that he learned to defeat the villain.
Yeah.
Actually, we haven't even talked about Green Goblin yet, so I'm going to put this aside. But we have to remember to talk about that after.
Yeah.
Before we finish up the origin conversation, I do want to mention I wrote initially in my notes that when he was like trying to web sling before he like ran into the wall, he was saying like, go web, fly, up and away, like just saying all the different catchphrases to make it work. And I wrote them because I thought they were corny, and then later found out that they're like directly from the comic book, so I apologize. It didn't
I didn't know that.
It did not deserve my shitting on it, even in my own personal notes, so I want to give them that credit.
Just because something's from a comic doesn't mean you can't shit on it.
Well, no, because I was like, why would they write that? That's dumb. But it's not their fault.
It is dumb.
Like, it is dumb, but it's the comic book's fault, so I can't.
But it's also,
I can't blame
it's
Sam
stylistically
Raimi.
designed to be that way.
Yeah.
But also, like, they chose to include it.
Well.
And that was a dumb decision.
Yeah. No, but I mean, going back to what we're talking about, right? Like, I think this movie is intentionally trying to be dumb sometimes, which, like, like... But not that like gives it a pass, like yay for this movie for trying to be dumb. But I just mean like it's not like it was I don't think David Koepp, screenwriter of Jurassic Park, was like, oh, you know what'll be a great line here? Up and away, Web. Like,
yeah. But Carol, I also like that you didn't have to mention that. Like your notes aren't public or anything. You're just like you're apologizing.
I just felt guilty about it.
Yeah.
I just have to put it out there.
I like that.
And then I have a question for Marco. Okay. The whole him, by him I mean Spider-Man, trying to fight that dude for money for a car, was that canon? Like from a comic book?
So,
or did they make that up for the film? Because that's preposterous.
So this is something that the movie streamlines in some ways that I think makes it better, but then also makes it worse in others. So in the original Spider-Man comic, he doesn't like wrestle for cars, but he just becomes like a freak of like he just like goes on talk shows and like fucks around with his powers. Okay. Just to like make money, and just also like Stan Lee's original idea was like, what if like the dorkiest, never got attention person suddenly was like the coolest person in the room, and so like he's like, what would that person do? And the idea is, well, that person would just be a dick and just like go places and show off his powers and like think he's super cool and that kind of stuff. And it was actually like prolonged. Like he went on like multiple appearances and he would show up and people were like, oh, who's the Spider-Man guy, yada yada, and he was just like progressively becoming more and more of an asshole. Until his Uncle Ben died, where we have to throw in that guilt. Now, that's something that I think the movie streamlines better, because in the comics, Spider-Man is at a wrestling match, not to make money for a car. Okay. Because I pointed this out when we were watching the movie. I was like, he's going to go wrestle for $3,000 to try and get a used car? Like, what? But anyway.
No, but in the newspaper, there are cheap cars for under $3,000.
I still, just everything about that. Just the idea that MJ ran off with Flash, And Peter's like, oh, it's because he has a car, therefore if I get car, MJ will run off with me.
Yeah,
like,
that was stupid logic.
It's so dumb, and I don't like that, but in the comics, Peter is, like, at a wrestling match, someone comes and robs the guy, and it's a similar situation, because he had got screwed out of money, he's at, like, the height of his fame, and so he's like, nah, fuck this, I'm not gonna stop this guy. The guy runs away, but then goes to Peter's house and does, like, a robbery there, like, breaks in at Peter's house, and then kills Uncle Ben there. And, like, that's something that I think this movie streamlines a lot better, where it's like, no, that. Uncle Ben was going to pick him up, and the guy directly escaped from Peter and then killed Uncle Ben.
Well...
which I think is a really good, like, really good... Well, no, he did. Because Spider-Man 3... You want to talk about canon? Spider-Man 3 is not canon to me. Like, it's so dumb. But, yeah. So, that's a streamlining of the origin there that I think makes a little bit more sense. Okay. Although I do still find it hilarious that Peter's plan is just to, like, get a car, and somehow that will fix...
I was gonna say,
yeah.
Okay, so hearing that now, this is the first time I
can't believe we never talked about this. Yeah.
I would say it was a good question. But I would say I actually prefer the first half of the comic book origin.
Yes, me too.
And the second half of the movie one.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm slowly falling more and more in love with, like, when you said he goes on talk shows and he's like just like a...
He's like an influencer. Like, he's just like a piece of shit who's, like, famous for some reason.
And then the tone, like, suddenly shifts when Uncle Ben dies. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
But the whole going to Peter's house thing just on a coincidence and killing him there is stupid. So everything past that in the movie is better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coincidences in all of these films.
There's a lot of coincidences in comics.
Yeah.
Comics is built on coincidences. That's definitely true. I agree with you though. I think, like, the one half is better there, but then the other half is better here. But
if I had to pick one overall, definitely the movie version.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I know that, like, they try to tie it in with, like, because he's trying to impress MJ, but I don't know. It's also just like you spent 20 minutes telling her how you cried when she was Cinderella or something. You know what I mean? Like, the problem isn't that you don't have a car. The problem is that you're a fucking weirdo. Yeah. Like, just talk to her. Like,
oh my god.
And also, she's just with someone. Like, what do you want from her?
Yeah, and also that person is Joe Manganiello. So, like, what do you expect?
True.
You know what I mean? This guy's about to go be in Magic
But
Mike.
also his name is Flash. So that's...
True.
You know, turn on, turn off. You gotta
pick
which one's
it's
more
really
important.
Conflicting. Yeah, you wouldn't want to fight me neither. You know oh wait! I'm sorry. Can I tell a quick Joe Manganiello story?
Sure.
I don't know if anyone has this in their notes or whatever.
Sure.
I don't have notes.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. He was on a podcast maybe like 5 years ago, and he was talking about this movie, and apparently a lot of the, like, production guys really hated Tobey Maguire. And so during that, like, during that, like, staged fight scene, they like were gonna give him money to actually, like, hit Tobey Maguire.
$100.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
See, but when I had the note, it didn't say why. It just said that, like, 2 of the production dudes offered him $100 to really punch him, and I was like, did they hate Tobey Maguire, or did they just think it'd be funny?
No. They did not like him. Yeah,
Fair.
He clarified on the podcast.
Fair.
He was like, yeah, they did not enjoy him.
Seems like a lot of people didn't like him.
Yeah, I mean, he's Michael Cera from Molly's Game, so
Yeah.
I understand why. You always have to keep that in the back of your mind.
Oh, I never forget it.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to say, though, when we were talking about the comic book version of his origin story, I can see now why in the comics he would pair up with Deadpool a lot.
Yeah.
The comic version makes a lot more sense because, like, whenever, like, the first time I heard that in the comics Deadpool and Spider-Man was, like, a frequent team-up, I'd always think back to the Sam Raimi movies. And I'd be like, I don't see how that fits at all with the Raimi Peter Parker. But I get it now.
Yeah. It makes more sense in the comics. I mean, comic Peter Parker, I think Tom Holland's great. Like, don't get me wrong, but I still don't think we've really seen, from a writing perspective anyway, like, the true, like, dynamic of, like, Peter Parker, Spider-Man. And I think Holland gets the closest out of everyone, but yeah.
Are you talking about, like, the contrast between Peter Parker and Spider-Man?
Yeah, and in the way, so, like, Spider-Man embodies, like, Peter almost being a little bit of a bully sometimes, like towards his enemy, like flexing his power that he never got to like flex because he was always picked on and stuff. Like I mean Andrew probably gets the closest as Spider-Man, but the problem with Andrew is that when he's Peter, he's also the same way, and so it's just like he's just a bully the whole time, and the Tobey Maguire is just a little bitch the whole time, and he's just always crying. And I think Holland, like, gets the closest, but then Tom Holland's also kind of like, whoa, like, what's going on? He's always, like, confused for some reason. So, I don't know. Like, I just feel like we haven't had, like... I genuinely hope, like, Tom Holland stays with the role, like, as he ages, and we eventually get... Because, like, for some reason, the fucking... Like, in the comics... Spider-Man was in high school for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this was not... But, like, in the movies, this is the be-all and end-all of the character. Is like, this high school kid. But, like, most people's touchstone with Spider-Man is him, like, being college-age Spider-Man. That was, like, the Spider-Man in the 90s show where he is a little bit more confident and, like, he's doing cool things and yada yada. And then, like, his Spider-Man is a little bit more confident, too. So, I don't know. I hope we get to that point with Tom Holland.
Yeah. I'm also hoping it... Like, with Tom Holland Spider-Man, we get to the point of, like, the direction it's going in the video game series right now, which I want to touch on real quick, is the last game introduced Miles Morales. And I hope... And Peter Parker in that world is, like, 28.
Oh.
So it's, like, a teacher-protege thing. And I hope we eventually get there with an older Spider-Man teaching... Well, I mean, basically what the Into the Spider-Verse movie did. Yeah. But with, like, maybe not that old of a Spider-Man.
Oh, dude.
Like a serious movie.
Jake
but
Johnson,
I mean, I love that movie.
Yeah. But. If you cast Jake Johnson as an old Spider-Man, I'd be there for it. In live action? Oh my god, I'd be there for it. But no, I know what you mean. I hope we get... Yeah, and honestly, like, if I'm being totally honest, I kind of hope if Spider-Man No Way Home is a Spider-Verse movie, it's... Like... Well, yeah.
We don't know, guys, until a trailer drops.
No, it's happening. Come on. Like, I would kind of hope that it is an older Tobey Maguire, like, being in that role for Tom
Can you
Holland.
imagine it's 50-year-old Tobey Maguire still trying to play a teenager?
No, I mean, he couldn't. God. Like, he would have to be older. And I really do hope it is, like, him, like, imparting those lessons.
Passing on the torch to Tom Holland.
Exactly. Or even... What if, like, that's where we finally get Tom Holland's with great power comes great responsibility? Is from, like, Tobey Spider-Man.
Awesome. Because that actually comes from his movie,
Yeah, that comes from his movie, and it feels like a nice
that
way
gave me
of doing
chills.
That. Yeah.
I literally have chills.
Dude, I have chills just thinking... This is the stuff I just think about sometimes, and I'm like, what if? I mean, I'm sure it's not going to happen. I'm sure he's just going to show up and say pizza time, and then someone will dab, and then the movie will end. But, like, like whenever there's, like, a cool... Like, his name will be Ralph Boner, and then everyone will go, ha ha ha, and then it'll end. But, like, I just wish we would get, like, that moment. That would be so cool if that happened.
And also, there's, like, an idea going around that they've mentioned Uncle Ben in the MCU one, but, like, obviously we've never seen him. So, like, Peter Parker from, like, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker could be, like, metaphorically, for the sake of this movie's universe, the Uncle Ben figure that we get in, like, a live-action... that we can see, you know? Mm-hmm. And especially if that, like, great power, great responsibility line idea is a thing, that would, like, solidify that.
Dude, the more I think about it, now that I've said it, I think it has to happen. That to me is, like, as inevitable now as Cap going back to be with Peggy. Now that we've said
Get in touch with someone from
that
Marvel,
has to happen.
from
Yeah, Sony.
See what's up.
Don't put out the trailer yet. Like,
okay, but my question is, if they do all meet in this universe, I wonder if they'll discuss the very dramatically different ages of the aunts and uncles.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Like, what if one of them hits on Tom Holland's aunt? You know what I mean? Because she's
Andrew
Marissa
definitely
Tomei.
Oh yeah.
That would be an Andrew Garfield Peter Parker joke for sure.
Yeah, for sure, because he's just a horny idiot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be. But, you know, since we're talking about kind of what we think this movie's going to be, you know, the rumor of that movie is that it's going to be a Sinister Six movie with all the bad guys from the previous Spider-Man movies, asterisk, that people have liked. Because not Topher Grace's Venom or Sandman.
But unless they're waiting to reveal him.
Unless. Oh my! If Topher Grace comes back, I will actually, like, kill myself. I don't know if I could actually stand another Topher Grace's Venom before. And I feel so bad, because he is a genuine nerd and was like so excited and loved the character so much. And
he
like
left that 70s show to be in Spider-Man 3.
I know.
That
And
blew my
also-
mind and made me very upset.
Yeah. It's so sad on like so many levels. But anyway, since that's probably, you know, going to be what the next movie's about, and since we've kind of talked about the origin, should we talk about Willem Dafoe just absolutely fucking chewing the scenery as the Green Goblin in this movie? Oh my god.
Yes. Oh,
I was going to say, we should dial it back to the actual movie.
Yes.
Yeah. The first half
Dancing
of
around
this
the
podcast is actually just about, I don't know, Spider-Man as a whole.
Yeah, just Spider-Man as a concept.
Yeah.
What's everyone's favorite Green Goblin line in this movie?
Green Goblin
Oh,
line?
man.
Yeah.
Oh, let me see what I got.
Okay, I'll say a line, but I also want to say my favorite Green Goblin thing in this movie, and this is maybe becoming my funniest Raimi trilogy memory. I thought it would have been something from the third movie, but it's this.
Yeah.
It's when we first see Green Goblin, I think, in action during the World Fair or whatever parade with Macy Gray, and he shows up, and there's this balcony of Osborn executives, and he throws a bomb and liquefies them.
He turned to skeletons. Yeah.
And I turned to Marco and I went, Jesus Christ. Because I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
That's insane. My favorite line, I think. My favorite Green Goblin line.
Think about your line, because I have a favorite moment.
Okay, go ahead.
'Cause it's not even a moment. I have a favorite mannerism. And it's when he's on the roof after he's been like sleep, and he puts Spider-Man to sleep, and he takes him to the roof, and Spider-Man wakes up and he's like knocked out, and Green Goblin is just like standing in front of him talking, and then at one point he just like walks over and casually just like leans on the rooftop, and it's just like the level of like the casualness in that lean. It's just like as if these two chums were talking. This is like Spider-Man's arch nemesis, and he's just leaning on the thing, and he's like, "So, yeah, you gonna join my team, or are we gonna take over the world?"
Comic book thing.
That is such a 60s comic book thing, but that always makes me laugh. Just that, like, that image of just like, hey, what's up? Like, oh, it's so good.
I also like how defined his ass is in this scene.
Yeah.
Very much. Do you have a favorite moment, Carol?
Yeah, I don't think I have
Like, I know
a
you-
line looking through my notes, and I
Okay.
definitely haven't seen it enough to remember any off the top of my head. But
Oh,
I
we'll feed you
definitely
some,
love the moment when he goes to take Aunt May, and she's like praying and looking so terrified. It's more to Aunt May's credit, but then he makes her finish the prayer.
Yeah.
Before he
It's
takes
so
her,
weird.
like a badass like villain would.
Yeah.
It was so funny to me that he's like, yes, this is what I need to do. This is gonna
He's like,
be
"Finish it."
intimidating. Yeah.
My favorite line, it's a Norman Osborn line, but it's when he's being fired from
Oh my God.
Oscorp, and he's like, "You can't do this to me. I started this company. You know how much I sacrificed."
Oh my god, yeah, just the spontaneous anger.
Yeah.
You know what? I have another favorite mannerism. I'm sorry. Before we
Okay.
get to the line,
Get 'em all.
This is just the Green Goblin love fest. I love him, and we just need to talk about everything. When he's doing his origin, and he's about to he's about to like have the gas and become the Green Goblin. He has to drink some kind of primer, and so he grabs this bottle. And he drinks it, and then he just fucking spikes it off the ground like he's some kind of badass. Funniest thing I've ever seen. After he becomes the Green Goblin, and he does the back to formula, and he throws him, and then he jumps on the thing and just goes like he does a Green Goblin pose. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable how ridiculous that is. I think my favorite line that isn't "I'm something of a scientist myself." Because that is so funny, and I use that all the time in meme world.
Something of an engineer myself.
Yeah, of course. I think my favorite line is when he's pretending to be the lady that's trapped in the fire, and he's like, "Ooh, ooh," and then Spider-Man comes and he just goes, "Ah!" and he kicks him, and then as he's taking off the shell, he just goes, "You're pathetically predictable," and it's just like, oh my god, just that turn of like pretending to be an old lady going into immediately reaming him out, so funny to me. I also love MJ and I, we're gonna have a hell of a time. I don't know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
Right before he's about to kill Spider-Man. And also, that's like Spider-Man's like hero moment of like, I can't die now, I have to protect MJ. It's really weird, but I love that.
For some reason, a lot of the villains always make weird like sexual innuendos about MJ before like beating up like, Peter or him beating them up. You know, just
1960s.
Has to be a part of it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, that's like, to me, like the most, like there's so many like early 2000s things about these movies that don't age well, like Macy Gray, and PS1 CGI, like just like awful CGI. But I think like the thing that like doesn't age well from like a story perspective, in particular, is just Mary Jane, like as a character throughout these movies, and just the idea that like even in the comics, like she had more to do than she does in these movies. Like in these movies, she only exists to be in danger at all times. Yeah. Like and constantly almost dead. And it you know, it doesn't age well at all. And it's like just give her something to do.
Or for sexual exploitation.
Yeah. One of the two.
Especially in the first movie, they really did her dirty in that rain scene.
Yeah, I mean I feel like her entire costume design in these movies was just like, don't wear a bra. You know what I mean? Like that was literally the amount of like thought that they put into her costumes. It's like,
well, that was very like late 90s, early 2000s. That was everyone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Green Goblin. He's great. I love Willem Dafoe talking to himself in a mirror, going crazy.
Yeah, I like that.
I watch that all day. I don't care. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually, thanks for reminding me, because that is one of the things that I actually genuinely like about the movie is he uses his mansion, like, for anyone, I guess, who needs the context, Green Goblin is, like, insane.
Yeah.
Especially in this movie. And he uses this echoey voice, like, that he just hears in his house as sort of his Green Goblin persona egging him on. And I do like how they did that, where it's just a huge, empty, lonely mansion, and you just hear it echoing through the halls. And then the whole mirror thing, where it's like he's talking to himself in the mirror, but it's filmed so that it looks like the reflection is moving differently than he actually is. But then it like cuts back to reality, and it actually is just like all in his mind.
Yeah, it's very so like Jekyll and Hyde-esque, especially with him like not remembering what he did right away when he was the Green Goblin and stuff. Gives off that vibe. But also, before you continue, sorry to cut you off, but this is a fun fact and it's worth it, I swear. Else. Okay, cool. Not cutting you off, but for a fun fact. When they're talking, when he's talking to himself in the mirror, the not Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, has fake teeth in, but the Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, has his real teeth, which are not as nice. Crazy.
Oh, I was like, why? And then you said because they're not as nice. Yeah. Is that just a shot at
Willem Dafoe? They just wanted to be rude to Willem Dafoe. Maybe. I mean, I think he was into it. He seemed to really like the role. Did most of his own stunts.
Hopefully, I'm glad he's probably coming back.
Yeah.
I think he's great. Dan and I.
Is he one of the ones that is rumored
to he is not only rumored to be coming back, but he's rumored to be like the leader of the Sinister Six.
Nice.
Like he's putting the team together to fuck up all the Spider-Mans.
Cool, okay.
Which I think is cool. And we also talked about this, but it's a shame that he never got a chance to play the Joker. He'd be such a good Joker.
Yeah.
I hope one day he plays like an old Joker in something. That would be cool.
Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns Joker. Oh, that would be so good. If we ever get an actual Dark Knight Returns movie that's not just Zack Snyder being an idiot, that would be so good. What else do we like about this? J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh yeah, of course.
Unbelievable. Like you want to talk about just like
perfect casting.
Like I genuinely think this is the best comic book casting of all time. Like forget Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, this is. It's so good that we've had 2 reboots and they didn't even try to recast him. Like he doesn't show up in The Amazing Spider-Man, and then in New Spider-Man they just brought him back. Yeah. They were like, nah, it's just him again, because who else are you gonna get?
No, awesome. I totally agree. It's literally like you ripped J. Jonah Jameson from the comic page and turned him into a live action. Like I'm convinced J.K. Simmons didn't exist before he was cast playing J. Jonah Jameson.
Exactly. And also, I have to say, like, his lines are still genuinely funny. Like, it's not even like, oh, like, he's doing such a good performance, but it's kind of cheesy. He's freaking hilarious. Like, nails that like shitty boss, like thinks he's so smart character, and
Is it this movie? I think it's this movie where he's like, where he wants to buy one of Peter's pictures, and Peter's like 300. He's like, that's outrageous. Done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because he's like, I'll give you 150. Peter's like 300. He's like, that's outrageous. Done. Yeah, it's so good. Oh, also, fun fact, the guy that works with him, Hoffman, is Sam Raimi's brother.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is like, yeah.
I did not know that.
And Betty Brant, who is actually like a famous comic book character, is also someone famous. I can't remember her
Elizabeth
name right now.
Banks?
Yeah, Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, she auditioned for the role of Mary Jane and was told she was too old. But Tobey Maguire is 2 years older than her, or 2 years younger than her. Regardless, bullshit and sexist.
No one was too old.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one was too
Did
old
you
for
see
Anthony
everyone
Elizabeth.
else in that high school? Very
Yeah, no one's too
frustrating.
old.
Like,
No.
I'm glad she still, got that bag, but very annoying.
Honestly, I mean, good for her for not being cast as Mary Jane, because it probably would have just like not ended well for her career. Because like, what's Kirsten Dunst done lately? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
what's she up to?
She did stuff.
She was in Hidden Figures for like 5 minutes. Remember?
She was in that
I
movie?
actually
She was like
never
the
saw
white
that
woman.
movie.
Guys, that movie's so good. You've never seen that movie?
No, unfortunately.
She was like the white woman that like
minutes.
learns to be a little bit less racist.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, she's in the movie for like 5 minutes. But yeah, I barely see her in things anymore.
Yeah, like me neither.
She was in Melancholia.
I mean, I guess she's probably loaded.
That got good reviews.
Okay.
Actually, wasn't she in Fargo?
I've never seen Fargo.
Like, I haven't seen it either, but I
Oh,
thought
okay.
I heard that she was
The
in
film
Fargo.
or the show?
The show. The show.
Let's see. When did Fargo come out?
2014, I think. The first season.
I think that sounds about right. 2014 was like just the sickest year for everything.
Oh, yeah.
TV,
For entertainment.
movies. Oh my god, the best year in entertainment.
Not seeing
yeah.
it. Oh, no, she is.
Okay.
Oh, she.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess
She got
not
famous
much.
because she was like the kid actor in Interview with a Vampire, right? That was like her big role.
Yeah, she was also in Marie Antoinette
Oh, she was
and
in Jumanji.
Elizabethtown. And Jumanji. And
Oh, she was
Eternal
in
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind between Spider-Man
Oh,
1 and 2.
that-
That genuinely is a fantastic film.
Right.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Oh, it's,
It's
a
really
good film.
good. You'd like it a lot.
That was... Because I was
Very
like,
good.
I have seen her
Oh,
something.
Bring
something.
It On!
That was the
Guys,
thing.
iconic.
Okay, we'll do it.
What is
Do
it?
on
She's
the
been
podcast.
in Bring It On.
Oh, is that the cheerleader
Yeah.
movie? Oh, I haven't
She
seen
was
that.
like the
seen that
lead
movie.
role. It's really funny. I mean, actually, I haven't seen it in a few years. It also might not age well, but I remember thinking it was
Sure.
hilarious.
You know what? It's okay. Things that don't age well, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nothing ages well except the Dark Knight trilogy. Those movies could have come out yesterday. I wouldn't know because they're just Christopher Nolan. Unless it's made by like Christopher Nolan, it doesn't age well. So you just gotta.
Yeah, and on that note, when we were watching the first one, the first Spider-Man movie, Marco made a point where he was like, "This movie came out 3 years before Batman Begins." But now I think it's less like shame on you, Spider-Man. Like you should have been better for coming out 3 years before Batman Begins, and more. The Dark Knight trilogy was just so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I can't believe the first movie came out in 2005.
It's insane.
Like think
Came
about
out
the
in
movies.
2005?
Batman Begins
Yeah.
came out in 2005. Think about
No
the
way.
movies that it came out before. It came
Yeah.
out before Superman Returns.
Shit.
It came out before X-Men: The Last Stand. It came out before Spider-Man 3. It came out before Green fucking Lantern. Like all these just like awful like holdovers of comic book movies. That and The Dark Knight just comes out and is like a perfect Batman movie.
That could fit in with modern day.
Yeah.
Like I said in the intro, like how far the expectations have come
Yes.
for a comic book movie. Batman Begins was doing that in 2005.
Yeah.
So kudos to them
Yeah.
for that.
Do we have anything else you want to talk about with this first movie?
We should probably mention Harry.
Oh,
I was so surprised James Franco was in it when I first watched. And I think that's all I have to say about Harry.
okay. Can I tell you guys something funny?
Sure.
Like, for the longest time, this was what I knew James Franco from.
Oh.
Oh,
Like,
me too.
As
Yeah.
Harry Osborn. Like, I was like, oh, that's Harry Osborn whenever I saw him anything else. And then coming back to watch these movies, he is awful.
Yeah.
Like, he is awful in these movies. I don't know
He does not
what
get
he was
better.
doing. He gets worse. Yeah. He actually gets worse as they go on, and he's just
Well,
like,
everyone gets worse.
fair enough. Except J.K. Simmons. J.K. Simmons does
Yeah.
not get worse. But, yeah, he's brutal. He's brutal. I don't know what movie he thinks he's in. I don't know why this was, like, what I knew him from. I don't know why, like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, 'cause it was your first film in cinemas. That's why.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, but I mean, like, even after I'd seen him in other stuff, I was always like Harry Osborn. That was like the thing I associated him with, and I guess it's just nostalgia. But it's just like, oh my god, like he's just fucking he's a piece of shit. Like I don't know what he's doing. And he's a terrible friend. He's a piece of shit friend, by the way.
Literally.
Oh yeah.
He knows he was trying to help Peter talk to her at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then, like, 2 seconds later, is dating her behind his back, knowing full well that his best friend is in love with her. That's why he doesn't tell him about it. I was shocked.
His dad is right to hate him. You know what I mean? Like, I know that his dad really hates him in this movie, but also, like, I kind of get it. If you have to raise this piece of shit, he's like, Dad, don't drop me off in front of the students. And he's like, oh, that's another funny Green Goblin line. Don't be ashamed. Never be ashamed of who you are, Harry. Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah.
But also, like Norman is definitely the reason why he is the way that he is.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a dichotomy there, but just from what we see, like, oh, Carol,
yeah,
I have a question for you as someone who has only seen the first movie, I guess, twice, but really, like, you know, you're pretty recent to it.
Yeah.
Because I'm, like, so attached to it, I can't come up with an answer to this.
Okay.
And Dan and I were debating about this, so we don't really know.
Okay.
And maybe the movie doesn't know. I don't know.
I'm not sure what you're gonna say.
Me either.
Are Harry and Peter,
yeah,
like, old friends or, like, new friends? Because he apparently just came to the school.
Yeah.
But also, they're like, you helped me graduate, and you're my best friend for life, and we're going to move in together.
I imagined, like, they were immediate or very quick friends from whenever Harry arrived. I don't know what year he was supposed to arrive in. I assumed, like, because he was saying, like, don't drop me off in the rolls, like, that's embarrassing. Like, you'd think if he was, like, at the high school from grade 9 or something, that everyone would have known by then that he's rich and it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Sure.
So, I don't know. I don't know when he got to the school, but I just imagine that they were immediate friends. It is a little weird that they want to move in together, but, like, also rent in New York is a lot.
Yeah, fair.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. That makes sense to me. But, yeah, I guess not
Yeah.
old friends, but not, like, super new friends. Like, at least, like, a year into the friendship or two.
I just hate the timeline. Like, just
Yeah.
make them old friends.
Like, the movie's so ambiguous because I'm the opposite. I've always thought they were, like, childhood friends.
Yeah.
But just because of how ambiguous the
Yeah.
movie puts it.
Well, it's also because, like, our meet cute for, like, Norman Osborn is Peter being like, oh, hello, person I respect and I've read papers on.
Yeah.
Like,
So they couldn't
who
have
I've
been
never met
childhood
before.
unless the dad was not around for 18
Yeah.
years.
Right.
Or unless they always went to Peter's house. Or
Yeah,
something.
but then
because,
that
like,
always-
Aunt May and Harry seem like they've known each other for a little while.
That's what I'm saying. And then also, to me, it, like, diminishes their relationship. Like, when in Spider-Man 2, I know we're jumping ahead. Hopefully we get there soon, because we've already been talking for, like, an hour and a half. But
Holy shit.
in Spider-Man 2, when Harry's like, you were my best friend and you killed my dad, and you have that big, like, emotional climax, like, it means nothing if they've only known each other for, like, a year. Because that movie takes place so soon after this one. It's like, hey, person that I kind of knew,
It's
but,
2
like,
years
we never
after
had...
this one, actually.
Okay, so Harry has known Peter for, I guess, 3 years in movie time. But apparently, Peter is, like, the most important person in his life, and he makes time to go to Peter's fucking birthday party at his aunt's house. Like, what? And Aunt May, by the way, they're living together, right? At, like, Harry and Peter's apartment, the place to be, and they're hanging out and living there, and then they're there for Thanksgiving, and Harry goes full sexist mode to MJ and is like, just keep your mouth shut about things you don't understand. And then Aunt May goes, Harry Osborn, as if she's, like, his mom, and she's known him since he was, like, 2 years old. But apparently they've only known each other for a year?
I know, yeah.
It's weird.
That's why I think they've been, like, friends since they were really young. But there's no definite answer.
There's no answer. It sucks. Alright, guys. Can we talk about my favorite thing from Spider-Man 1?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just going to say, because I thought you wanted to already transition us to the second one, and I was like, I at least have a few favorite things I need to
Yeah,
just
like,
some
there's
points.
still... there's more to talk about this one still.
This is so hard.
What were you going to say, though?
Yeah.
All the New Yorkers. Just all the background New Yorkers.
When they're throwing stuff at the Green Goblin at the end.
Which, by the way, and I talked to Dan about this, but there's pretty much a unanimous consensus that was a reshoot because of 9/11.
Yeah, to show New Yorkers coming together post-tragedy.
Yeah, which is obviously 9/11 tragedy,
Yes,
but the
yeah, of
idea that
course.
they were like, we need a scene where a bunch of New Yorkers throw things at the Green Goblin and say, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, and somehow this is gonna help the country heal.
Well, also they had to take out
so
a full
funny.
scene
Yeah,
of
because the Twin Towers.
Yeah, a web between the
Oh.
two towers.
Yeah,
Stopping some. Yeah, it was part of the it was trailers. It was a reflection in the movie posters. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
So they needed to fill time, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah, so the teaser trailer for this movie, which was a really iconic
Yeah.
teaser trailer, was just this helicopter being chased by police, and it's going through buildings in New York, and then you come around a building, and it was trapped in a web in between the Twin Towers.
Oh.
That was the teaser trailer, and everyone was like, oh shit. And then 2 months later, 9/11 happened, and everyone was like, let's take that off the internet, and never...
Yeah, I know they did some
noticed it.
rebranding a little
Yeah.
bit after. What were you going to say, Carol?
Oh, I just had general points about lines I liked, parts I have notes on. So it's when we're ready to wrap up this first film.
I think...
Oh, okay. Well,
Do you have anything you want to hit?
I was just going to say we have to talk about the ending fight scene.
Sure.
Oh my God.
Sure we do.
Because this is, so as I was saying before, a big problem we realized was Spider-Man doesn't use anything he's learned throughout the film. The classic hero's journey thing.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
Before we get to the actual ending fight, can we talk about the pre-ending fight?
What's the pre-ending
Okay,
fight?
the bridge.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
The only reason I want to bring this up, I want to bring this up for 2 reasons. A quick fact, and something else we noticed about this movie that doesn't age well.
Okay.
So the quick fact is, in Spider-Man lore, the Green Goblin killed Gwen Stacy by throwing her off the bridge, which everyone knows Spider-Man he goes to web her, but it turns out in webbing her foot, she smacks her head and kills herself. It's very sad. Anyway, so the whole Green Goblin thing in this movie of him taking MJ and bringing her to bridge was supposed to be kind of a callback to that moment, and for Spider-Man fans to be holy shit, are they going to kill Mary Jane, yada yada. No, I guess Spider-Man just has enough time to save both of them. I guess the Green Goblin just didn't factor that in, by the way. He was just you can only pick one, and Spider-Man's
No.
I'm going to pick both.
I'll just say both pretty easily,
Yeah.
without minimal effort. The other thing though is we noticed that sucks is how fucking awful the ADR is in this movie, because it's the Green Goblin and Spider-Man, and you're cutting between these two shots, and both of them are screaming at each other, and no one's mouth.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's mask is flat, and there's the one shot in particular where they cut back to Spider-Man, and he goes, "It's you who's out, Gobby, out of your mind," and his face does not move. It's a static image.
And we also realized it wasn't until the second movie that they ADR'd it so it sounds like it's coming through a mask. It just sounded like
he
a
was
person talking. Yeah.
Okay, now you can continue with the final fight. Sorry,
Yeah,
I just...
so that moves into the shitty final
Yeah.
fight. I've already said it, he doesn't use anything he's learned.
Yeah,
but I just
Green
love...
Goblin literally kills himself.
Yeah, so he does a backflip because of his spider sense, and the glider stabs him. But I just love how the scene looks, but I still have no idea where this is supposed to be, because it kind of looks like a demolished building, and it kind of looks like a cemetery.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem again is just it's kind of just a lazy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially looking back at it as an adult. Obviously this wasn't something we noticed as a kid, but it was kind of weak.
Yeah, I the Green Goblin killing himself is, again, an incredibly iconic comic book moment. That is how the Norman Osborn Green Goblin kills himself, is that he tries to kill Spider-Man with the glider. Spider-Man dodges out of it. He ends up killing himself. So I get why they put that in the movie, but I do kind of feel like we talked about with him not learning anything, there is no... it means nothing when he kills himself in this movie, if that makes sense. Other than, he says to Peter, their last dialogue exchange is, I was like a father to you, and I'd be like a son to me. And then Peter says, I have a father, his name was Ben Parker. Which I guess,
But that was after he's already killed himself.
Yeah, and also, I guess, that's, his emotional... that's his, when you have to learn emotionally. That with great power comes great responsibility, and he was my father, and this guy's a piece of shit. But then Green Goblin just says Godspeed, Spider-Man, and then the fucking glider comes, and then he just dies.
Oh yeah, sorry. So that was before he.
It is before, but I think the thing is when you look at, and look, I don't love Spider-Man Far From Home, but that movie clearly sets up the idea of, like, Peter learning to use his spider sense, and then in the final battle with Mysterio, like, has to rely on his spider sense. Whereas in this, it's like, I wish there was just something, like, else. Like, I get, like, that he's, like, willing to let his surrogate father die because, like, he's acknowledging, like, how important Ben was to him, and I'm totally fine with that as the emotional stakes of the scene, but I feel like there needs to be, like, a literal thing that he has to do or learn. Like, something. Like, literally anything. Like, whether it is maybe, like, having to figure out how to use his spider sense, and then in that moment, like, using it, or I don't know. Like, just anything. Just anything. Other than nothing.
I mean, he learned how to climb walls and shoot webs, so...
But I also feel like, though, sometimes that's the problem with, like, shitty origin movies, is, like, the character learns how to be the superhero they are, and then they just are successful at the end. Like, in bad origin movies. Whereas, I think in good origin movies, like Captain America, First Avenger, the first Iron Man movie, not even the first Iron Man movie, but, like, Batman Begins, like, yeah, like, they have to learn to be the superhero, but then there's still, like, this, like, you're the superhero, but, like, are you really the superhero? Like, you have to, like, actually learn the thing.
You have to earn the...
You have to earn the mantle in a way. And in this, no, it is just, like, Godspeed, Spider-Man, and then he kills himself. It's like, okay, great. And also, like, we talked about this, but what was this, like, if the glider hit Peter, they were so fucking close, it would have impaled him anyway, so I don't know what the point of that was.
Yeah, he definitely was dying either way.
Yeah.
But good point with, so you brought up Far From Home, and I think that's why, like, I have more of a problem with it now, because that was a whole movie of developing that one power.
Yeah.
And in this case, this power, it just comes to him naturally, and he just uses it to, like, save himself in the end, and he doesn't really, like, go through any trial.
Yeah.
You know? Any final trial. Except for that Ben Parker line, but...
Yeah. And again, like, I think, like, the emotional stakes are there. I think that's fine, but I just, you know, normally, like, in a, like, really good, like, modern movie that would hold up to scrutiny, there would be, like, the emotional stakes combined with, like, an action, like a plane of action. Like, when I'm thinking about Batman Begins, I'm thinking about... It's actually similar in Batman Begins of, like, Batman having to reject, like, his surrogate father figure in Ra's al Ghul. But there's also, like, the literal thing that's happening in the scene where he, like, outsmarts Ra's al Ghul for the first time, and, like, you never learn to mind your surroundings. Like, it finally comes back after all those callbacks of him.
There's a lot that comes back.
There's I mean, we'll get there is the entire third act of Batman Begins is literally just, like, a recycled script from the first, like, it's just every line of dialogue gets repeated, but honestly, like, I prefer that, even though it is a little bit silly in parts.
Yeah, no, I prefer that.
Yeah,
too.
because at least it's, like, it's showing dedication to the idea of, like, character growth, and like we talked about, I don't think these movies care about character growth as much as they just care about translating, like, the feeling of reading a Spider-Man comic, so,
Absolutely.
You know. It's the call they made. Doesn't age well, but whatever.
All right, I think it's time to move on to Spider-Man 2.
Before
officially.
I'm going to say all my things.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
okay.
didn't say all your things.
Scrap that.
Okay, so, where's my first note? The fact that it starts with him saying, "The story of my life is not for the faint of heart." And then you see, like, Tobey Maguire. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's note number one. And
Okay.
then also I just want to say...
Wait, what does that mean?
I don't know what that's...
It was him, like, running after a bus, like, looking like Tobey Maguire. It didn't match the vibe.
I got you.
Okay, also, the lab scientists say that risks need to be a part of laboratory science, and just as a laboratory scientist, that is untrue.
Yeah, that is absolute... Isn't it Green Goblin that says that to the scientist?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
He's like, risks are a part of science or whatever. And I think we even commented on that. We're like, that's actually not true.
That's always the opposite of the goal.
Yeah.
Also, when Spider-Man and MJ are talking across, like, their fence, and it was, like, after he got his powers, and she goes, "You're taller than you look." And he goes, "I hunch." And she just says, "Don't."
Yeah.
What the fuck is that conversation?
That's flirty dialogue. Carol, have you never flirted before? That's how you flirt with someone.
If that's how you flirt, no, never in my whole life. Oh my god. Also, at one point, he's like, working on his powers in his room, and Aunt May comes up to him and knocks on his door and is like, "Oh, you're acting so strange," and he says, "Okay, thanks." Did you forget how to be a human being when you got these spider powers?
Yeah, there are a lot of "Did you forget how to be a human being" moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to Octavia Spencer. Just thought that was important.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Octavia Spencer, who would have worked with Kirsten Dunst in Hidden Figures.
Yes. Yeah, they worked together in Hidden
Reunion.
Figures. Yeah.
Did they share a scene?
I think, yeah, they did. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Also, when the Green Goblin attacks around the parade time, initially when Mary Jane thinks she's going to meet Harry's father, and she's wearing this red kimono. First of all, why the hell is she wearing a kimono?
Yep.
Second of all, then Harry goes, "Oh, but like my dad likes black. You like if you want to impress my father, like that's not the right outfit." Like, don't tell her what to wear. Also, at the same time, just general don't like him. Also, and then when Peter and Mary Jane meet up on the street at one point, or it was before or after the kiss, it was around that time, she was like going to meet Harry to have a dinner, and she invites Peter on their date. Like, that is something you would do if you're secretly dating, I guess unbeknownst to her, but secretly dating your best friend's crush. Very bizarre. And I think that might have been it. I also did want to say, fun fact, I saw the place where they filmed the upside down kiss.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Although,
Like, you've been there?
like, yeah, in Universal Studios.
Oh, that was a set?
Yeah, that was a set.
Oh.
With a lot of
How
fake
cool.
rain.
Yeah.
Yes.
I still like the upside down kiss. I think the upside down kiss is a fun moment.
Although, why
Like-
would she pull the mask down just to show the lips and not the rest of the face?
Listen, none of any of that scene makes sense. Why does he not have the mask on, fight, but then puts the mask on, only for her to pull it down to have a kiss, but then she doesn't look? But just the image of Spider-Man and Mary Jane kissing and Spider-Man's hanging upside down on a web, again, I think it's just like a nice comic book image. None of the rest of the scene makes sense.
Yeah.
But, you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's pretty iconic, I guess.
And then it comes back in the third movie,
It does
which
come
we'll
back.
get to.
It's there.
It also
boy,
comes back in the
does
second movie.
Does it come back? Oh, it does come back. It comes back in the second movie as well. Not as prominently as in the third movie.
No.
It's not a plot point in the second movie, but yeah. Speaking of the second movie,
Are we ready for the
Are we
second
ready for
movie?
1.5 hours in, I think we
Yeah.
are.
well, I think now that we've covered like a lot of the general basis,
Yeah.
we can.
And also, we spent a lot of time talking about Spider-Man comics and,
Yeah.
like, around the movie and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this movie's like the best? Question mark?
It's technically the best out of the three.
Yeah.
At least
I think so.
What do you think, Carol?
I'm thinking what I need to. Oh, Alfred Molina. Do love Alfred Molina.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I might have liked the first one more.
Fair.
I'm unsure. I'd have to think about it. It's definitely
let's
not the third
discuss.
one.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely not the third one. I mean, look. Like, here's my perspective on why I think the second one works, and we'll see if Dan agrees, and we'll see if we can sway you, Carol.
Okay.
To prompt you here, because obviously you haven't seen these movies 1,000 times,
No,
and
just
you know,
once.
haven't stewed on them. So we'll see. I think this movie works the best because, sorry, I'm dying. The Heisenberg condition is back. I think this movie works the best because.
Sorry. I just remember in grade 12 when you legitimately thought you were dying like Heisenberg.
Yeah, I was coughing a lot and watching a lot of Breaking Bad. It was a bad combination of things.
Sorry.
I mean, I think here's what this movie gets right. The villain, I think, is good. Really
To an
good.
extent.
To an extent. There is some silliness,
Yeah.
for sure. But I think he has more motivation. Like, Green Goblin's motivation after killing the Oscorp members is what? Just
he's
fuck with
crazy.
Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's like, I get it. Like, he was a scientist, he was married, he was happy, he's disgraced. The inhibitor chip doesn't make sense, but I get his motivations to try to,
Does it make
prove
sense
himself right.
scientifically?
Well, it doesn't make sense why you would put the most important thing to protect yourself in a little glass tube at the top of
Well,
the thing.
okay, fair.
And then turn your back to a giant fusion reaction.
A star.
A star.
Yes.
A sun. if you will, in the palm of your hand. But
Yeah.
So I love Doc Ock. I think his design is great. I think the arms look awesome. I think he's terrifying. I think Alfred Molina does a great performance. I buy more like his relationship with Peter than Norman Osborn's, because Norman is always kind of a creep, but I feel like Alfred Molina does a really good job of being like genuinely a friend to this guy and like really trying to help him out and like give him life advice before he turns. I also like the idea of like Peter struggling with being Spider-Man. It's not like fully explained like we've talked about, but the idea of like he's going through like depression, like he literally cannot function as Spider-Man anymore, I think is an interesting concept. And then eventually having to take up that mantle. I think this has the best fight scenes in the trilogy. The bank vault
me
fight,
too, yeah.
the train fight's fucking awesome. It's so good and it holds up so well. Yeah, and this movie just like to me I think feels the most like a movie because it has like it tries to have character development and like a plot and doesn't always, and there's a lot of shenanigans. There's a lot of
there's a lot of shenanigans.
Peter can't make it to the thing on time and Mary Jane is like mad at him. Could you imagine? Like I've never in my life invited someone to something and then had them cancel and be like,
I
if
hate
you cared about me, you would have been there.
Yeah.
And then
It's
also
so selfish.
Yeah, and then also like Harry also she's like, this person came to see it 5 times, and I'm like, well, that person's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
Like I had friends in plays. Carol was in plays. I didn't go see your plays 5 times.
And I
like
still hate
that's
you for it.
ridiculous. Yeah. Harry.
Oh yeah, Harry's character completely changes.
To me,
Not
that's
for the better.
the worst part of this movie by far is Harry's character. Also, I think this movie's a little bit too long. But I think whatever good it does for like trying to have a more serious plot, trying to like really bring Peter down, and like the villain, Harry, is so bad. And also like Mr. Dickovich. It's so good, but also so bad, but like so good.
You know what? We were talking about like perfectly cast.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
Mr.
great,
Ditkovich.
Great casting.
I think it's actually my favorite character in this series.
He's so good, dude. Rent.
Thank you for bringing that up because I almost completely forgot.
Yeah, I know, me too.
But okay, Harry, and like we pointed this out when we just did our rewatch. He like, I think it's because so this is Harry that is now inherited his father's company because he died in the first movie.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Right.
And like now he's just like this executive douche.
Yeah.
And that's like all his character is now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like suit, sunglasses, like I don't know if he actually has like a Bluetooth headset, but like that he would be the person to like,
Yeah.
you know. But I agree with what you're saying with regard to, I think this movie, out of all 3, does do the best with character stuff overall. Especially like more so than more so than the other 2 for sure. Like this movie, it focuses a lot on Peter Parker rather than Spider-Man because a big part of it is Spider-Man losing his powers. And by the way, that I've always had a problem with until this last rewatch, because when you like said your thoughts on it, it kind of convinced me how like this is him being depressed and not being able to like be in tune with his powers.
Mm-hmm.
I never really read into that, and so I never really liked it because there was just never any explanation in the movie for why this was happening.
That was an issue for me too. I was waiting for the big reveal.
Exactly.
And it didn't happen.
No physical reason, but
No, yeah.
you bringing that point up, I think works for me. I think that's enough for me, and that is a huge reason why like I think the character work is a lot better in this movie.
I think, and to be fair, like obviously having seen this movie a billion times, probably more so than any other movie, but yeah, I think like I ultimately like coming to that conclusion from the fact that like every time we see him kind of start to lose his powers, it's always after like Peter having gone through a traumatic thing. You know what I mean? Like a really bad situation with Aunt May, a really bad situation with Mary Jane, whatever. And then we cut to a scene where Peter's powers start to fail him until we ultimately get to him just kind of like it's kind of ironic because like being in full like we'll say like depression mode, but then also like Peter having a good life, a quote unquote good life, but like an unsatisfying life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like giving into those urges, but like it's not ultimately like what he needs and like what's satisfying for him and what's ultimately going to help him like be a good person and progress and be better. So like I do think you could have like hit that nail on the head a little bit harder. I think what really lets it down, to be honest, I dig like Peter telling Aunt May that he's responsible for Uncle Ben's death. I think that's a really cool choice that you don't really see like in comic books, and I like that progression.
But also, does Aunt May know he's Spider-Man at the end of that conversation? I couldn't tell.
We think so.
Okay.
Probably. It's never confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think this is the big letdown of the Peter losing his powers plot. Is the plot kind of culminates when Peter and Aunt May have that conversation outside her house when she's moving.
Oh, yeah.
And she gives him that big speech about like what it means to be a hero and why being a hero is important.
And she clearly knows by that point.
And she knows. But that speech is so awful and is so rambly and like doesn't really have a like it's not like it doesn't build to a moment. It doesn't build to her being like, and also I know you're Spider-Man and like whatever. It just kind of goes on. She's like, and people stand in the rain and they'll cheer for hours just to see a hero swing by. And it's like, but she's also talking about heroes like heroes as if we're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, Spider-Man is the only hero in this.
Oh, he absolutely is.
So I don't like I struggle because I feel like if that scene was better, I think more people would dig the him losing his powers plot because I think it would like give context to that in terms of like her summarizing it and you finally be like, got it, that's what this movie's about.
It would pay off a lot better.
Yeah, like it would really tell you like this is the like the heart of the movie, and instead it's just like this weird scene, and then the movie continues, and then he gets his powers back.
And another thing about that scene, while we're on the scene, is they mentioned comic books, and this is kind of a minor thing, but it kind of bugs me that like I always appreciate when a superhero movie talks about comic books in a context that hero, like if it like for example in the first Captain America movie. The comics appear after Captain America becomes a public figure.
Right.
Like, he inspired the comic books.
Yeah.
But they just kind of talk about, like, comic books. So, like, apparently comic book superheroes are just a thing in this world. And it has nothing to do with, like, the real hero being Spider-Man. He didn't, like, create comic books or inspire comic books.
So, fun fact, and this goes back to the 1960s Marvel comics as well, but, like, DC Comics exist as comics in Marvel Comics continuity.
Oh.
So, like, Spider-Man, the character in comics, like, read Superman comics.
Oh, that's weird.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and that's, like, that was an old Marvel thing. And I think this is a hangover from that, of, like, you read comics. And Spider-Man 1, she's like, you're not Superman, you know? Like, I think that's what that's referenced to. Yeah, no, there's literally a line in Spider-Man 1 where she says, you're not Superman. Everyone needs help, Peter. You're not Superman.
Wow,
you know?
that's just completely gone over my head every time.
Yeah, and so I think the idea is, like, they're trying to continue that tradition of, like, DC Comics characters exist as comic books in the Marvel Universe. But I agree, unless you're me and you knew that fact, it's just weird that she's bringing out comic books and you're like, what? Like, which comic books? Like, what are we talking about?
Because now you're in a world where there were just comic books about fictional superheroes, and now there's an actual superhero that exists in the world.
Yes, yeah.
It's weird.
It's weird.
Just a minor thing, but...
It is weird.
Okay, so the more that we're talking about it, I guess I can concede that this is probably the best movie of the three. The reason I was, like, hung up on it, and it wasn't an immediate best film, is because I do find the whole storyline with MJ super unbelievable, especially that in the last 2 years we're supposed to believe that not only have they remained good friends despite the fact that she told him that she loved him and he said he couldn't, like he didn't, like he loved her as a friend essentially. He friend zoned her even though that's not a real thing. And so that they've been best friends this whole time, like nothing's happened, and yet she's engaged to someone or is in a serious enough relationship that she's gotten engaged and he knew nothing about it. And she's still, like, upset that he didn't come to her show, and that whole thing was super bizarre to me. And then, like you said, his, like, conversations with his... I think the whole situation with his grandmother was weird to me, because, like, it does make sense that probably without the uncle, she, like, can't afford a home and needs to move. But just, like, the fact that he takes her to the bank to try to get a loan, and then when the bank is attacked, he, like, ditches her. Well, obviously, because he's Spider-Man, but, like, the banker has to be like, you're asshole nephew, where is he?
Yeah.
I don't know. That whole thing was, and she like gave him $20 and he was like about to cry.
I was
like
just gonna say.
$20. I don't know. That whole thing kind of took me out of it. And also the fact that they harnessed the power of essentially a mini sun was a little too much for me to believe.
Yeah.
But that's real science.
Is it?
No, that's like unironically, literally what like people are trying. Like people are trying to have fusion reactions.
Yeah,
In their
but it
apartment?
doesn't
Well, not in their-
appear
not in
like
a studio
glowing
apartment.
orb, sun
No.
floating
Yeah, but
in the sky.
No. Okay, gotcha. I see. Your issue is that he literally created a mini sun,
Yes.
not like.
I
okay.
understand fusion, and I know it's
He
real.
didn't run it by any peers.
Yeah.
Just in his apartment.
Yes.
Yes. Also,
Invited some people over.
one of the facts on IMDb is that tritium doesn't exist. It just says flat out, tritium is not real. And so
okay.
in case anyone reads that, tritium is real, just not in
Yeah.
the way that they depicted. It doesn't look like
Sweet,
that,
sweet.
but it is an element and it exists, I promise.
Isn't it just? It's an isotope of hydrogen, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was wild to me that
Fucking
IMDb just really
IMDb.
had that on there with no context.
Anyway, yeah, this movie's it's pretty good. J. Jonah Jameson, he's pretty good.
Yeah, I did want to say though that bank heist scene is another just straight up 60s comic book like thing. The vault. I love how the vault is just in the lobby. No security.
Well, I also love like this scene's so frustrating because there's stuff I love and stuff that's so dumb because the vault is comedically just in the lobby. Ridiculous. Doc Ock shows up in like a trench coat, which fedora. It's like what? But the action's pretty good.
Yeah.
I also like what we were just talking about. Like Peter starts to lose his powers a little bit in this scene, and it kind of ties in because it's right after his aunt doesn't get accepted for a loan, and then he ditches her, and then like he goes to fight Doc Ock, and he starts to lose his power. So again, like he's like depressed about his life, whatever. But yeah, then the bank just has gold coins.
Yeah.
Shillings.
In little money bags.
Yeah.
Like what? What bank is this?
It's like an old timey West bank.
It's so silly. It's so silly. Like I don't get it. But then it's like there's such cool stuff. He throws the car. He throws him through the window, and it's like it's so frustrating. This movie's odd with itself. It's like this movie sometimes is trying to push into that actually good movie category, but then there's constantly just like silly, cheesy Spider-Man shit.
Well, this
around it
movie
at all
did win
times.
an Academy Award.
For what?
Oh God.
Visual effects?
I think so. Something like that.
Has to
I
be.
have it.
What else?
I'll
What
find
else did
it.
it win?
Keep talking and I'll tell you.
Definitely not acting. Definitely
No,
not rated.
no. Absolutely not. Oh, it won Best Visual Effects, and it was nominated for
Okay.
Best Sound Editing and Best Sound Mixing.
Okay, I could see that. It's a decent sound mix. It doesn't. I mean, the ADR is not bad anymore. So I guess.
The first movie was also nominated for an Academy Award. I think also for something for sound
has to
or
be
editing, but
Let's backtrack a little though.
Yeah.
Because we should talk about the scene where Doc Ock murders all those surgeons.
oh, that was like
That's
a
a really good
horror
scene.
movie. That was
Yeah, that
actually my
was-
favorite scene in the whole film, I think.
That's like pure Sam
That was
Raimi.
pure Sam.
Yeah.
That was pure.
That
Sam.
was actually terrifying, and I was like, I kind of wish this was in another film,
A
so
better
I could
movie.
watch it more often and appreciate it.
Just watch the scene on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I'll take from this movie.
Yeah.
That was.
And
really
Marco, it was really good. And Marco, you were mentioning like how one of the things that's aged the best out of this movie, I think, is the look of Doc Ock.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with that. I also noted like I like how, first of all, I like the design of the arms and also how they act and even look a little bit like velociraptors.
Yes.
They even like they have sound effects that makes them sound like they're like hissing at each other when they talk to each other, you know, like just the robotic sort of like ambience of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the claws look like snouts a little bit, and just like they move around like they're a pack, like a herd of velociraptors. That's something that I didn't really like notice growing up, but just now that the more and more I watch it, I realize and appreciate that. And yeah, just overall, definitely like this like adaptation of the Doc Ock look, because some of the comic book Doc Ock
It was awful.
look. Yeah, it's very cheesy.
No, he looks so good here. It's such a good look. And yeah, like you talked about, I think it is definitely Jurassic Park-esque, like, in terms of, like...
Which is ironic because David Koepp wrote the first movie, but not this one.
We should also say the writers for this movie were the showrunners for Smallville.
Oh.
Which I didn't realize until we were watching it this time and I saw them in the credits. But I think it actually kind of makes sense a little bit because, like, Smallville was obviously like, let's strip Superman away from, like, his powers and just deal with the character stuff. And that's kind of, like, the entire plot of this movie. Which I think is probably why it, like, reaches, like, a little bit higher than the stuff from before. And the stuff after. Yeah, something else I noticed this time. So, first of all, there's some minor tweaks to the Spider-Man suit, which we haven't talked about at all. But the Spider-Man suit from this movie is, I still think, my favorite live-action Spider-Man suit, which I know may be controversial, but I think it looks great. It looks real. It looks practical. It looks like I believe him swinging around in it. Like, he looks like Spider-Man in it. And it just, it's really close to the first movie suit, but they just did some color, like, saturation changes. The red's a little bit darker, the blue's a little bit darker. And I also appreciate the fact that there's a lot of this movie takes place, like, in New York during, like, the day. And just the way, like, New York is shot in this movie feels more like a real city to me. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the first Spider-Man movie that feels kind of like sets. Like, it almost feels like a lot of, like, set pieces. Like, we're in this corner. Yeah. We're in, like, this thing. But in this movie, it really feels like Spider-Man is in, like, New York. And we're, like, in New York a lot. And yeah, I just think, like, the color and all that, and, like, Doc Ock is always out a lot during the day, and it like does a lot for me in terms of making it feel like more modern and more like a real superhero movie.
Well, we also mentioned, like, I think it was when we were watching the first one, it felt like we were in Gotham City.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, how much crime was going on, and second of all, just, like, yeah, it looked more fake.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was at night. Like, definitely a substantial amount of it was at night compared to the second movie.
I definitely think, I mean, that was a holdover of just, like, how superhero movies were made. You know what I mean? It was like...
Just you're living in the worst city ever.
Yeah, and also, like, they always made movies on sets back in the day. Really, I mean, this movie to some degree, but it's the year after this movie, 2005, when Chris Nolan is like, no, we're just going to make Gotham, Chicago, and we're just going to shoot in the real world. And then that's kind of now become the norm. But really, like, every superhero movie before this was, like, 75% on sets. But this one, I think, is, like, the closest we get. I mean, the next one is also New York, but it's so dumb that I don't even... It's like... But this one, I think, does a really good job of, like, actually feeling like we're in a real city.
Yeah.
We're in real places where we have real stakes. It's not just, like, extras screaming and saying, here comes Spider-Man! Like, it's not, you know, it's... I mean, they still do that, but it's like...
They do still do that. They have to band together to... Because it's in this one, he stops the train, right?
Yeah.
So they all have to help him and cheer him on again. But also, I know we haven't gotten there yet. I mean, we all are all over the place. But in that scene where he is stopping the train, and then at the end he, like, passes out from the effort, which, like, fair. Why does everyone on the train go to the front of the train that's hanging off the tracks? Do you want to die? Go to the back of the train.
I also love... Like, so how as he's trying to stop the train, there's the old, like, train conductor
sassing
that's just, like, saying, like, that's not working.
It's like, do you want to live or not? Like, this isn't helping. Yeah.
Got any more bright ideas?
Yeah.
I got a few. Yeah.
Dude, if I was Peter, I just would have punched him in the face in that moment. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, or just swing away. Like, all right, you get to die now. I won't kill you.
This man has just doomed you all.
Yeah, he's so bad. Going back to the horror Dr. Octopus scene. I just have a fun fact about this scene, which is that one of the doctors that Doc Ock kills is John Landis, who is famous movie director and father to Max Landis. But also John Landis, you can look him up. There's some weird stuff with the Twilight Zone movie that they made that happened around him.
So didn't someone die on that set?
Yeah, some children.
Someone died on the set of the first Spider-Man.
What?
Yeah.
What? I did not know that.
Oh, well, I was going to mention it when we talked about the third film, but I'll say it now since I've shared that. But yeah, maybe not on set. When they were building the set, a welder was killed when a crane toppled onto a construction basket in which he was riding and struck him in the head. And then they had that scene in the third film where the crane was going haywire and was like breaking into buildings and stuff. I was like, guys, come on, that seems a little
Tasteless.
Yeah.
Tasteless.
Anyway, that's why I was gonna mention it when we talked about the third one. But yeah,
Wow.
someone died. I guess
had no
not
idea.
on set, but making the set. For
Well, they
this
were
film.
physically on
Yeah,
set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So crazy
Anyway,
how
yeah,
people
John
die.
Connors. Oh, Carol, how bad is the play that Mary Jane's in? Isn't it just awful?
my God.
Were you listening to the dialogue in it?
I was, and also a big pet peeve of mine is how widely advertised it was. Also with her
Yes.
face on it, like she's this fucking movie star. Like, first of all, it's an off-Broadway production. That's not
I know.
going to be the thing that's postered all over New York City with the face of this woman who's in her first play ever. It just was so unbelievable
It's
to me.
ridiculous. No, it's completely ridiculous. I don't, and it's only so that way Peter can walk down the street and they'll be
Be
like,
like, she looks at me every
fucking-
day.
yeah.
of her face.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Peter walking down the street, we haven't even talked about the opening to this movie. This is the best opening to any Spider-Man movie
yeah.
ever. It's pizza time.
Yeah.
Pizza time.
Pizza time. It's so good. It's so funny. It's such a meme, but also I like it as the opening of the movie. I think it's like, because
That
I
was
feel
fun.
like there's always
It was a fun.
yeah. I
intro.
think there's always
Also, those kids running in front of the truck are stupid as hell.
God.
I have a note about that. I
Idiots.
was like, oh, they were really just gonna die.
Well, also the kid in the first movie that's like watching the thing fall on him. And
Yeah,
it's just
kids
like,
in these movies are just stupid,
Yeah.
just all around. But also, like a semi truck going down the middle of like Manhattan.
Yeah.
Gotta
Would
make
that
those
happen?
deliveries.
Yeah, it's pizza time. It's a fun
Yeah.
scene.
And we also
Joe's
like
29-minute guarantee is a promise, man.
we also kind of brushed over it and went before and after it. But in the bank scene, when Doc Ock does conveniently steal Aunt May of all the people in the bank, once again, crazy coincidence that the person targeted is this old woman, and having her hang off the building by her cane or umbrella or whatever, and then
Yeah.
having her be on a ledge, kind of hilarious.
That was cute.
And her like hitting Doc Ock's arm out of the way to try to help Spider-Man. Cute, but also insane that we were supposed to believe
Sure.
that. And
Yeah.
that the bank was giving away free toasters.
Yeah. What?
Only with a deposit of 300 or more.
Why?
Yeah.
In what did that happen in 2000 and whatever 4?
For $300 for a toaster?
Yeah.
You could buy a toaster for like $50.
I'm sure now it would be like an iPad or something.
You know what my which we should talk about some just lines that we like before we move on to Spider-Man 3, and I love the real crime would be not to finish what we started.
Yeah, no, the real
So-
crime is finishing what you started.
He's like, steal it? No, I can't. I'm not a criminal. And then they whispered him, and he's like, the real crime would be not to finish what we started. It's so fucking funny. Like it's
dead.
Yeah.
I guess another funny moment that I really like, it's a Ditkovich moment, and it's when Peter goes to use the communal washroom and knocks, and there's no one in there, and Ditkovich just walks in front of him and takes it, closes the door, and then opens the door back up again and goes, "Rent?"
and then Peter just closes the door. Yeah, it's a good comedy moment. I think there's like good Peter like hating his life comedy in this movie.
Yeah.
Like genuinely funny, not like ironically funny, but like actually like when he's looking in his closet for something to wear, and there's like
Two
one
things.
shirt, a suit, Spider-Man costume, and it's like that's the only things that he owns. I thought that was funny.
And he's like staring at it for like 10 seconds, like genuinely deciding.
Yeah. I know it's over the top, and we were making fun of it, but I love when he's at the party taking pictures for J. Jonah Jameson's son,
Oh my god.
and cannot get an appetizer or a drink. He just can't. And he finally gets one, and it's empty. And I know it's ridiculous and it's cheesy, but it actually it makes me laugh so hard. Like he cannot. He's so down on his luck.
Yeah.
Before we continue, something I would like to... This is the thing I remembered I was going to talk
Next.
about, was just the whole Spider-Man no more thing.
Oh,
Just because I thought it was worthwhile to bring up, because he says Spider-Man no more
Very
and then
prominently.
very prominently, and then there's that shot of him walking away with the Spider-Man suit in the trash
Yes.
can, which I just think is like a really good way of like them adapting something from the comic book, because that was a famous comic book cover, and the story was called Spider-Man No More, and it's Peter walking away from his suit and trash can. And so that was like in the marketing for this movie, and I remember as a kid seeing that and being like, "Cool, you got me. You did a comic book thing. Good for you."
That also reminds me of a J. Jonah Jameson line that we have to point out. So when the homeless guy finds it and brings it in, he makes him like an insultingly low offer, and he's like, "I can get more than that on eBay." Yeah. And also that reminded me of another scene. I think it's the first J. Jonah Jameson scene in this movie when Peter walks in. He's like, "Where were you photographing squirrels? You're fired." And then Betty's like, "Sir, the planetarium party." "Oh yeah, you're unfired. I need you to come back."
But also, like, he doesn't even work. He's a freelancer. Like, you can't fire a freelancer. Like, I just won't buy your pictures anymore.
He's not on payroll.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's so good.
Danny Elfman, who did the score, in case people didn't know, obviously we all know, had some sort of falling out with Sam Raimi during the course of this film, and he has been quoted to say, to see such a profound negative change in a human being was almost enough to make me feel like I didn't want to make films anymore.
Oh, Sam Raimi said that?
No, Danny Elfman said it about the change he saw in Sam Raimi during this film. They reunited 9 years later.
Yes.
But I just...
On what?
I don't, Oz, the Great and Powerful. Also with
James Franco.
Yeah, but I just thought that was wild. I don't know what happened during this film, but seems dramatic.
Yeah, I have no idea either, and he did not come back to score Spider-Man 3. They had someone else. That's why. But yeah, and then they just ended up making up. I don't know. But
what happened to Sam Raimi?
Well, I'm assuming what happened to Sam Raimi was probably like he was probably like already having the conversations with Sony of what Spider-Man 3 was going to be about, and he was probably not in a great place because
that's true.
I've heard it was a disaster.
Speaking of Spider-Man 3,
Sony being
let's talk about
Spider-Man 3. I'm like almost a little bit upset that I had to watch this film.
But isn't it ironically
It's fun though.
Yeah, but like not so much when I'm watching it alone in my bedroom, you know?
Gotcha.
Like sometimes when we watch really bad movies for this podcast, I'm like, if I was watching it with you guys, and like the fact that we talk about it does make me enjoy it more, obviously, because we all laugh about it together and I didn't go through the trauma alone. But sometimes when I'm in my room alone watching them, I'm genuinely like, what the fuck am I doing?
See, this one, like unironically, I'd rather watch this one than any of the other two.
That's fascinating to me.
That is fascinating.
I get, because it is so funny and it is a meme. I totally get
the
that.
memes.
The only thing that holds me back is I think Carol's point, which is just this one is like 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and so even though it's funny,
it doesn't feel that way to me though. I don't know. I never feel the runtime.
I really felt it all.
I think I do.
Every time he had those side bangs and thrusted his pelvis, I was like feeling every fucking second of this film, and I wanted.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Let's quickly, since we're on this, I'll let you guys know what I know about the behind the scenes. If you have any fun facts, we'll do that, and then we can talk about just. I think the easiest thing is just to talk about our favorite stupid scenes, our favorite memes. But the long and short of it was Sam Raimi wanted to make a Spider-Man 3 centered around like New Goblin and Sandman. Those were going to be like the primary antagonists, and then at some point in pre-production, Sony was like, "Hey, you have to put Venom in this movie," and Sam Raimi was like, "I don't care about Venom. Like, I was reading Spider-Man comics when I was young from back in the day, and Venom is a relatively new character. He was only invented in like the 90s." And so Sam Raimi
Edgelord era?
Yeah, Edgelord, exactly. And so he was like, I don't give a shit about Venom. Sorry?
Edgelord?
Yeah.
What?
I've never, what is that?
It's just like a person like that, like their goal is to be edgy, just like they think it makes them look cool.
I was
like
immediately thinking like edging in the sexual sense, and I was very confused
I can
about
tell
what you were talking about. That's why I needed
no
the explanation. Thank you.
Yeah. No, not that.
I was like, did edging really take off in the 90s or something?
Yeah, edging was huge in the 90s. Yeah, so Sony was like, you need to put some edging in this movie. And Sam Raimi was like, I do not want to do that. And then they were like, okay, well, you have to put Venom in the movie. And he was like, no, like, I don't want to put Venom in the movie. And basically they said, well, you have to. And he said, okay. And then everything went to shit from there, long story short, because they were already like a decent amount into pre-production, so then they had to do like they had to completely rework the story to introduce the Venom elements and a lot of stuff changed and was rushed, and a lot of bad decisions were made. And then Spider-Man 3 came out and killed the franchise. And since I'm assuming, like, just so we get it out of the way, because I alluded to it earlier, Sam Raimi was still going to make a Spider-Man 4. The original plan was for Vulture and Mysterio. And then, similarly, during pre-production on that, Sony basically said, we want to reboot the franchise.
Yeah.
And then Sam Raimi said, so I guess I'm fired then. And then he just didn't make the movie. No, it's not a direct quote. But I mean, that's my paraphrasing what happened. But I don't know if he was let go or if it was like, we want to reboot the franchise. And then they just waited for a response. And then Sam Raimi was like, oh, I get it. I'm basically fired, so I'll just quit.
Yeah.
So you can say I quit. But that's the gist of what happened.
So another factor that I'm starting to wonder may have like contributed a lot is the next year Iron Man 1 came out.
Yeah.
Thus starting the MCU and like how like that was like the start of most modern superhero movies, I think. With the exception of like the Dark Knight trilogy, of course. But do you think like even if they hadn't decided yet to cancel immediately after Spider-Man 3, that would have put the nail in the coffin? Because like I'm sure they wanted to get in on the action, and even if they couldn't incorporate Spider-Man into that, they like obviously the Amazing Spider-Man movies would have fit better into an MCU than the Raimi movies.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was inevitable in like that was the direction they would have wanted to go either way.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I actually don't think it's probably the MCU in specific, because I'm just trying to think of like what movies were out in the MCU when the decisions were being made. Because Amazing Spider-Man comes out in what, 2011 or 2012?
12.
Okay, so
You remember
this movie
that off
comes
the
out.
top of your head?
I know
it was
movie
the same
dates.
year as Avengers.
Yes.
So that was pretty big.
Yeah, so that movie comes out the same year as Avengers, but Sam Raimi is let go sometime in 2009-ish, so they can start working on Amazing Spider-Man. So, like, we're talking about, like, Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, and I think that's it. But, so, I honestly, and I think a part of this is also just, like, what the Amazing Spider-Man movie turned out to be. I have a strong feeling it was, everyone hated Spider-Man 3, and then The Dark Knight came out the year after.
Oh, and The Dark Knight.
I think Dark Knight was the one of like we want to do the Dark Knight of Spider-Man, because when you watch the Amazing Spider-Man movies, it's like it is so, you want to talk about edgelord, like those are like fucking just people that don't understand what Spider-Man is and just trying to apply like a Batman formula to Spider-Man. And I have a feeling that's what it was, but then I also think, to your point, fuck like Dark Knight. Let's say Sam Raimi even makes Spider-Man 4. Like, I think it was inevitable that Sony would have ended this.
That was what I was asking you.
One way or another.
It was endangered to begin with.
Yeah, I don't think, because I think, like we talked about, I think it is a holdover of the pre-2005, like, good movie. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think he was damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think what's kind of ironic now, like in this era now where we have had so many, like, modern superhero movies, there are a lot of people saying, yeah, fuck it, bring Sam Raimi back and make a Spider-Man 4. Who cares? Like, let's do something, because it's so unique and different that even if it is the ridiculousness of Spider-Man 3, it is still kind of a breath of fresh air in terms of, like, not just being like, yeah, pretty good superhero movie. It's just, like, a complete fucking, like, in its own world thing.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I hated the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but I would so be down, if we're doing this, to have Andrew Garfield appear as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think they would bring Tobey and not Andrew, but
no, yeah.
Just saying, like, I would welcome him to the cast if this is actually happening.
I think he deserves a chance to, like,
be better.
Yeah, no, I think he deserves a chance to be written by, like, good writers.
Yeah.
And, like, and that's not even fair to say necessarily, but I feel like he deserves a chance to not be pressured to be Batman. Like, he deserves a chance to actually be Spider-Man.
Now that you say, like, yeah, the Amazing Spider-Man movies are like the edgelord Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
I think they would fit well into the same universe as the Venom
Yes.
movies.
It's so funny you say that because, like, Amazing Spider-Man and Venom and Morbius feel like, and we haven't seen Morbius, but I'm just going off of the trailer.
Feels like a cinematic universe.
It feels like they're made by some people, and then like Spider-Verse and MCU Spider-Man are made by totally other people.
Yeah.
And I know, Marvel has some creative control, but I'm just from the Sony side of things, it feels like they're just a complete split in the studio and what they're interested in making. So.
Oh, I'm sure that's definitely the case. Yeah.
I'm also
anyway,
sure
we should
that's
probably
the
talk
case.
about. We should talk
Carolina
about how awful this movie is.
Where to begin?
Okay, how about this? Can we all pick a favorite dance scene?
Yeah.
Because there's like 5 dance scenes in this movie.
Easy.
Which one is your guys' favorite?
My favorite is the one in the jazz club. When he brings Gwen Stacy to MJ's place of work, and that is also when I started messaging you guys in our group chat.
Marco wins.
I knew it.
I thought you were at the scene where he dances in the street, which is my favorite dance scene.
When he's
the
like
montage.
he's like finger gunning at women.
Finger pointing, yeah.
Yeah, the Saturday Night Fever rip-off scene.
Yeah,
of
it
John
was
Travolta
definitely
walking
the
down
jazz
street,
club scene, which apparently took 2 weeks to film. And I want to know how and why.
Now dig on this, Karen. Now dig on this.
Double tap.
Double tap.
Also,
It's
the
so
fact that he just went up to play the piano and ditched his date. And
It's baffling.
And who was playing the piano? Like, did he pay him off?
I don't know.
everyone was just okay with it. I don't know. That was absolutely
also-
insane.
And when he pays off the waitress, he's like, find us some shade.
Oh my god. And he says
Thanks,
something,
hot legs.
Yeah, I was going to say, he says something about her legs. I was about to look it up. So cringy. It was almost physically painful to watch.
Yeah.
This is why I love this movie, though.
I think my favorite dance scene is Harry and Mary Jane doing the twist when they're making an
my
omelet.
God.
That's my favorite dance scene.
The one scene
because-
together, and we're supposed to believe that they have all the chemistry in the world because they dance and make an omelet. What?
Yeah. Speaking, I know this podcast has been a little bit about just like how much we all hate Harry, but like the acting done when first of all, the fact that a major plot point in this movie is a character has amnesia from getting hit in the head too hard is maybe like when you're summarizing this movie to someone and you're like, so then the new Goblin, because that's his character's name, like on toys and stuff, he was billed as the new Goblin, even though there's been like 20 goblins in Spider-Man history. He could have been the Hobgoblin. He could have just been called the Green Goblin. He could have picked up the mantle. No, he's the new Goblin, and he rides a surfboard.
Yeah.
And
Radical.
And they fight, and then
Peter clotheslines him.
Yeah. Yeah. And he hits his head really hard. And by the way, Peter's immediate reaction after that, other than shouting Harry really loud, Harry, 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 is to start doing chest compressions. And I'm like, bro, your friend just cracked his skull.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're doing chest compressions.
I don't know why you think he's alive. He's definitely dead.
But also during that scene, I want to point out, while they're like flying through this alleyway, VFX horrible. I don't know what was going on there.
Yes.
But also at one point, Harry goes like, I'm still right behind you. Like, if you were actually
I'm still
chasing
here,
him,
Peter.
trying to kill him, don't you not want him to know? Like, I'm
He's
sure
not
he
a- he's not a
assumes you're still
stealth
there.
It's literally so funny. Yeah, he's like, I'm still here, Peter. You're right, though. The CGI is awful. And I feel like it's because this is, like in the early 2000s, I feel like there was an understanding that CG looked bad. So there was still an attempt to, like, do a lot of practical stuff and meld it with practical stuff and hide the CG. Whereas I feel like in 2007, it's like, well, CG's good now, right? So we can do a lot of it. It's the George Lucas problem. And so they start CGing things that look awful. This whole fight looks brutal. And then he gets amnesia. And Harry's
So also
like, acting
convenient.
when he has
Another
amnesia.
crazy coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, and also, like, he gets amnesia exactly to the point that
He forgets just everything about him and Peter.
Yeah.
He remembers his
But
dad
then-
died.
That's what I was gonna say. This is one of my favorite lines, my favorite moments in the movie, where he's like, "My dad, he died, right?" And Peter's like, "Yeah." But then when they revisit this in the little getting his memories back montage, it's edited for some reason in the way that, first of all, he's having flashbacks out of his body. It's just the scene.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's the scene. My dad, he died, right? And it cuts to the shot of Peter going, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Because earlier in the hospital scene, he's like, "Oh, we can still hang out Friday night, right?" He's like, "Yeah, great." So they use that for the answer to the "my father, he died" line.
Yeah. I mean, I get what they're going for because they're trying to show. I know. I think what they're going for is like he's fucked up. Like he clearly is like fucked up in the head, and so he's like perceiving, like he's reading everything wrong, and he's like finding reasons to be mad at Peter, even though like it's not actually Peter's fault. Yeah. But it's just stupid. It's just the way it's edited together is so stupid. Yeah, and just like James Franco's acting when he has amnesia, it's like he's like never like it's like he's a 4-year-old. You know what I mean? He's like
he's laughing at everything.
Yeah, he's just like,
I know that phase.
Yeah, like he's it's ridiculous. Like it is some of the worst acting I've ever seen in my life.
He was filming Pineapple Express during this. His acting was better in that, so I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like casting James Franco in this role. Like he's a stoner comedy guy.
Yeah.
Well, because this was like shortly after Freaks and Geeks. I don't know how much longer, but that came out like I think right before the first Spider-Man. So that must have been on his reel, and I can't believe they saw that and they're like, perfect.
Well, like Harry traditionally is always like the hot, cool guy that kind of helps Peter like not be nerdy. Like that's the role he fills. So I understand them like wanting to cast just like an attractive young actor.
But they didn't write him accordingly.
Yeah. But they just did nothing with it. Instead he's just a fucking weirdo. Like they don't actually do anything with it.
He's also not comedic relief.
Yeah.
Which he should have been in that case.
Exactly. Well, until this movie when he is...
Yeah. Well, he's ironic comedic
relief. He's ironic comedic relief, yeah. When him and MJ do the twist while they're making omelets and stuff.
Oh, and when he has amnesia, yeah. I mean, it's almost like he feels more like what Harry should have been during the amnesia part than not.
Yeah, I know what you mean. What else? Oh, Edward Brock Jr. Topher Grace.
Oh my god. I saw his name in the credits, like at the beginning. Okay, also we didn't talk about this, but how the opening credits for the second and third movies just like give you a summary to catch you up in case you forgot.
Mm-hmm.
I watched them all back to back, so I didn't need it, but kind of appreciate it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And I like, just fun fact, and I just like had told Dan about this, but the like in the second movie, it's all artwork. Yeah. Like it's flashbacks, but it's flashbacks that are done like in artwork instead of like actual images from the movies. Mm-hmm. And what I like about that is that the artist that did that artwork is actually like a famous comic book artist named Alex Ross. So I was like, that's a nice touch. And again, I think you're right. Like if you aren't like us, and at the time, you know, not everyone like could stream things. Like you couldn't stream things, so you would have to own it on home video, which not everyone did. So if you literally saw Spider-Man 1 in 2002, and then 2 years later going to see this other movie, you're probably like, yeah, what the fuck happened? And I think, it's cool. It's a good system. I
just wanted to say the fact that, the whole Venom storyline begins, because we were going to talk about Topher Grace, with this, like, meteor crashing to Earth, and they miss it because they're making out, and then this black blob crawls out of it and no one notices, and then also it doesn't come into play until over an hour into the film at all in any way.
Yeah.
I mean, now obviously knowing the backstory and the fact that he was like pigeonholed into adding in a Venom storyline, like, sure. But at the time, I was like, I forgot about it. And then it was suddenly a thing, and he had a side part and a black suit, and that's where we were.
Yep.
It was so sudden.
Like it takes that long. It takes that long into getting into the symbiote stuff at all, and then the Venom stuff is like the last 15 minutes of the movie.
It's awful.
After Topher Grace prays for
to kill.
Yeah,
I want you to
God.
kill
That's
Peter
what God's gonna do for you. You're right. Good thing. When he walked into a church, I was like, "What the hell is he? What's his plan here?"
This is a weird change from the comics, because in the comics, he goes to church to pray for forgiveness because he's going to kill Peter. Or no, he's going to kill himself.
Oh, that's better.
Because in the comics, Peter, it's similar to this, right? Where, that's
why I did correct myself.
Yeah, like in the comics, he's just depressed because basically he thinks Spider-Man / Peter have ruined his whole life. And then he goes to church to pray for forgiveness because he's like, I'm going to kill myself. And then we get the church bell scene and Spider-Man ripping off the suit. Yeah, I mean, on the Venom stuff, this is what I want to talk about with J. Jonah Jameson's son. This isn't, like, always canon. The actual canon of where Spider-Man gets his black suit is really dumb. Yeah, where Batman gets his
as opposed to his other color suits.
Yeah, it's in this event called Secret Wars, which was just a chaotic Marvel event from back in the day. You don't need to know anything about it. Spider-Man's fighting in space with everyone, and there's a machine that gives him this little black ball that turns into a black suit. And it's only later on that we discover that it's a symbiote, and it makes him a shitty human being, and it's sensitive to sound and stuff like that.
Yeah, the mechanics of it and whatnot.
Yeah. But there's been like retcon since then, so sometimes it's created in a lab, which is okay. But a cool retcon that they did in the 90s cartoon was that J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut, brought it back with him from space. Yeah. My son, the astronaut.
That's kind of
He's not
cool.
gonna make it. He's gonna make it. He brought it back with him from space because he was like a geologist or something. Or no, he's an astronaut. But like he was up in space doing geology stuff, and they like
an astronaut.
yeah, and they took some rocks. And so when he was introduced in the second movie, and then when I found out that Venom was going to be in this movie, I was like, oh, that's cool.
Like, that would have been a perfect just a little setup for the feature movie, at least.
Yeah. And yeah, the whole Venom thing sucks. And I was talking with Dan about it, and it's like, I can't even, like, if you don't know, like, Carol.
Yeah.
You don't know about comic book Venom stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, does any of this mean anything? Like, when he's, like, in the church using the bells to help him rip the suit off him, like, is that just, like, out of nowhere for you? Because, like, in the like, comics, like, he knows that it's sensitive to sound. So he goes to a church and starts throwing himself in between church bells to get this thing to come off of him. In this movie, he's just fucking Batman crouched, like, all sad, and then he's in a church, and he, like, bangs into a bell by accident.
Was there. Like, when
No,
Dan
it just
just
happens to
now
be-
said it was sensitive to sound, that's when I learned that it was sensitive to sound, right now.
Yeah, okay.
I was just
exactly.
like, oh, he's in a church. That's another crazy coincidence.
Yeah, and it's also the same church that Eddie's at. So you have
Yeah.
coincidence squared. Like, it's just
Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, interesting choice. I mean, at this point I was used to it 3 movies in, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, it's so weird because there are 2 scenes with Dr. Connors where he explains the science of the symbiote.
And he doesn't mention the sound, yeah.
He doesn't ever mention the sound. It's like, just fucking mention it in one of those scenes, and then it's set up for later in the movie.
Well, maybe he would have known if he was paying attention and not eating cookies on the phone that Ursula made him and asking her to go and get milk.
You got any milk?
So fucking
Got any-
me some with chocolate chips.
Got any with nuts?
So-
Yeah, nuts. That's what it is.
Give me some milk.
Give me some milk.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's... can we talk about douchebag Peter Parker?
Okay, so we didn't talk about
He's
Sandman at all yet.
Ah, fuck Sam. We'll talk... Okay, Sandman killed Uncle Ben, I guess. He's retconned to have killed
And he's
Uncle
not
Ben.
a bad guy.
And he's not a bad guy. He's just had some bad luck.
So real quick, so Sandman has a daughter with cancer or something. I think it's never specified, but well, she's like, is she bald?
She's sickly. I don't know if she's... Yeah.
Whatever. She's dying.
Yeah. I mean, this is how irrelevant it is.
She's dying, and like his whole thing is he robs for money for his daughter, so he has a heart.
Yeah.
So he's not like a bad guy. It's unfortunate because he's like probably one of the best Raimi, maybe the best Raimi villain, I think, like written wise.
Yeah, written wise, yeah.
In the trilogy, and his story really just goes to shit by the end. It's crowded by the Venom thing, and it ends up being dumb.
Well, it's not even just crowded by the Venom thing. It's also...
It just doesn't go anywhere.
And it's also tied into, like, the whole retcon with Peter's uncle.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it starts off as, like a cool idea that they just keep throwing shit on top of, and it just never turns into anything. It just, it's shit. And then he just fucking stands there with Peter, and Peter makes his dumb crying face, and is like, I forgive you. And then he just sands into the wind. And it's like, okay,
that
great.
part made me laugh out loud. It felt like he was
Isn't
a
it
ghost.
ridiculous? Yeah, like...
And also, like, the whole daughter thing is no excuse for why, when approached by Venom and asked to team up with him, he just, I want in. I want to kill Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's not going to get him any money or save his daughter in any way.
Nope.
It's so out of character.
Although,
so that's Sandman.
When he was introduced, I just have a note that says, where was it? The teacher from Easy A in a prison suit.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone saw Easy A.
I haven't seen Easy
Very
A.
funny.
Yeah.
He's a teacher.
Well, he's a
that-
famous actor. He was in some, like, TV sitcom back in the day, too.
Wings.
Wings. Yeah.
In the Frasier cinematic
Oh,
universe.
shit.
Is Wings in the Frasier cinematic?
Yeah, it's in the Cheers Frasier cinematic universe.
Are you
Wait, like
serious?
Wings, the show about
Marco's gonna
pilots?
watch Wings now. Yeah.
Yes. Like, I'm watching Wings then. That's what I gotta start watching.
It's the worst one.
Yeah, I mean, I've never watched it, so I would think so, yeah.
But anyway, that's Sandman. There's really not much more to say. Except for his origin story is stupid.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
Also, what are the odds that he just runs into this part of, like...
Okay, so let's go over this. So first of all, he's on the run from the cops. He hops a fence. There's no security or anything. He falls into a scientific experiment.
Correct.
The scientists are just about to start the experiment, and they notice a fluctuation of weight on the thing. And their quote is, "It's probably a bird. It'll fly off when we start."
Yeah.
There's no camera or anything on the site,
Yeah.
which is completely uncalled for.
They get
And then-
scientists wrong.
Scientists, Dan, but remember, science is about taking risks.
Oh yeah.
Don't forget.
Oh, this is an Oscorp company.
Yeah,
Oh.
science is specifically about taking risks.
God.
That's what science is about.
But then also, he turns into Sandman because a grain of sand enters a pore or something on his hand and travels into his body and makes all of his
sand.
like. Yes, it's very stupid.
It's dumb. I mean, Sandman's never had a great origin. Like, how do you explain someone having sand powers? Like, it's one of those things...
I was just gonna say he would have been better if he didn't like. And I guess he wouldn't have been Sandman as a character, but if he just was a person who robbed, like, and just was a normal human being, and that was his villain, like he's a robber that just keeps going on Spider-Man's radar somehow,
Yeah.
and just like putting in the character work of making him like a villain with heart. Forget the whole Sandman thing.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, also I have a question. Why, when the other photographer became Venom, why did his teeth get fucked up?
Edward Brock Jr.
Good question.
What happened there?
So...
That was just a visual effects thing, I think.
In the comics, the idea, I think, and I don't know, because the whole Venom thing, again, we're talking about 90s edgelord bullshit,
Yeah.
but 90s edging bullshit, but I think the idea was like that the symbiote was so like angry that it was rejected by Peter that the next time it bonds with someone it like becomes kind of a monster, because like in the comics Eddie also hates Peter, so then when the symbiote bonds with him it's like these two people that hate Peter and they have like a stronger bond than Peter and the symbiote, and they kind of just become one person, and then it turns into like a more of a monster, which is why he has like fucked up teeth and stuff.
Okay.
It's still dumb, but like that's the explanation. In this movie, I don't know. Because it's because when he's like on the ground and the thing is on him, a little bit of it gets in his mouth. Remember? He goes and some of it gets in his mouth. So
sure.
that's why, I guess.
Sure, I still don't understand why it would change his physiology.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. It doesn't make any sense.
Also, Gwen Stacy. When she was introduced, did not know it was Gwen Stacy. Just 'cause she was smart, and then she was like modeling. I don't know. Didn't know Gwen Stacy was a model. That was news to me. But then they called her by her name, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, isn't that more of a Mary Jane comics thing?
Mary Jane is the model. Gwen Stacy is the nerd that's friends with Peter. I don't. But I guess in
They're both non-characters, so it doesn't.
Yeah,
matter.
they're both non-characters. Also, during that scene when the building was falling, Bryce Dallas Howard was pregnant filming that.
Yeah, I
Oh,
found that in my notes too. She didn't know though.
Yeah, she didn't know. She
didn't
found out
know.
after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that kid's okay.
Okay. Also, another crazy coincidence that the photographer dude was dating her. That he went to take photographs of the thing. That he noticed it was her. That he said out loud it was her, and that he was standing next to her father, and he had just gone on a date with her
in New York,
and just mentioned that to him casually. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb.
in one of the most populated cities
Right?
on Earth. They ran into each other.
Also, like her dad being a police captain is only relevant. It is like only relevant for the fact that he dies, knowing that Peter is Spider-Man. Like that.
Oh, in comic
In
lore?
comics. Yeah. That is the only relevance that character has. Why is this character in the movie?
It's for the fans, hoping like it's throwing them a bone, and like I'm sure a lot of them were hoping it would go somewhere, and it just goes nowhere.
Yeah, of course it goes, and it goes.
The only
literally nowhere.
other part he has in the movie is when he tells Peter about the Uncle Ben thing.
Yeah.
But it's just like any policeman could have done that.
Exactly. That doesn't need to be the captain of police calls in this teenager to be like, we got this wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it. Yeah, Gwen sucks in this movie, by the way. She's also, like, really like, no offense, but, like, if I want to date with my girlfriend and, like, some girl from college who I, like, tutored for 5 minutes came over and started, like, touching my hair and, like, having a conversation with me, I'd be like, what are you, like, read the room. Like, I am in the middle of a date at a fancy restaurant. Like, fuck off.
Okay, but also just, in general, the plot line that Peter, as Spider-Man, was like, yeah, kiss me. And didn't think that Mary Jane would be mad. And then was surprised that she was. Like, just very tone deaf. Like, that was also really annoying about this whole thing, is that they had Peter not giving a shit about her, essentially. And, like, anytime she complained about, like, getting fired from her Broadway play, which, like, is really shitty, even though, like, I agree she shouldn't have been in it.
Yeah.
But, like, he's just like, yeah, like, people hate Spider-Man all the time, too. And he just wouldn't listen to her for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's so stupid because, this kiss thing, this is where it comes in the third movie, like we were talking about before, but it happens before the symbiote thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just normal Peter.
Yeah.
That wouldn't that have made a lot more sense if, like, the symbiote had somehow attached himself earlier on in the movie, so all these bad decisions would have at least had a reason.
It would have, but it didn't.
See, that's, I think, I can't even believe we're talking about, like, the plot, as if, like, it's even worth talking about, but...
I watched Spider-Man 3 for the plot.
Yeah.
And like, for the edging.
For the edging, yeah. I watched Spider-Man 3 for the edgelord. It's really stupid that a lot of the relationship problems happen before he's even infected by the symbiote. Yeah. Because then at the end of the movie, when they reconcile, and hey, I'm sure in the new fucking movie he's going to show up in, they will be married and have a kid.
But they'll either be married or it'll be like the animated one where they're like divorced or something.
Yeah. But it's like, those problems existed before. Like, it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, the symbiote should have been the root cause. Like, it should have been there from the beginning. Because, you know, like, I know it was there when he punched her in the face, but, like, that's not the only issue that they had. Like, they clearly had other issues, so...
It's lost potential.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. But, I mean, don't forget, he put his hair down, remember? He, like, gave himself some bangs, and then...
And everyone thought he was hot all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that haircut looks so bad.
So unbelievable.
So, okay, let me back up a little bit. So, Sam Raimi was approached to include... I'm assuming they said, like, Venom, but really to include the symbiote in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it would have gone a lot better if you take out Venom, introduce the symbiote in this movie, and then don't, like, the next movie tackle Venom, because that's a whole other thing. Have this whole movie be with Peter and the symbiote, and his, like, at the end, his struggle is to get rid of the symbiote. And then you can have Sandman in there too, like, if they wrote him better, of course, but, like, you can have, like, other side villains in there.
Yeah.
And New Goblin. Oh, and that was my point too, because stupid name, but to have Peter dealing with the symbiote thing and the Harry thing for the whole movie, if written better, I think could have been really interesting, because it's like a friendship rivalry that's amplified with this, like, symbiote poisoning him.
Right.
And then, like I said, in the hypothetical Spider-Man 4, we continue with the Venom story after having a whole movie establishing the symbiote thing, and then dedicating a whole movie for the Venom side of things. I think that would have been a lot smoother.
I think the unfortunate reality is that Sony was like, Venom the character,
I think they wanted
not just the symbiote,
has to be in, because I can actually imagine them coming back with something like that, and Sony being like, no, we don't even care if you do the symbiote arc, like, just Venom. We literally just need to say that Venom is in this movie. Like, that's the only thing that matters. So, it's unfortunate that...
Is it because they wanted Carnage in the fourth one or something?
I don't know. I think it's just because, like, Venom has this reputation for being such a big Spider-Man villain that they were like, we have to. Like, we can't not do it. But again, it's just Sony not understanding a property that they own.
Yeah.
What's everyone's favorite meme from this?
Hold on. I just need to say one thing.
The third one?
Yeah. At one point, Harry tells MJ that in the 12th grade he wrote her a play. And no, he fucking didn't. If this guy was, like, failing out of school, no way. Just saying.
Okay. Wait.
Yes.
Okay, no, I guess that 12th grade, that is high school. So hypothetically, he wouldn't have had to know her for from long before.
Not
It would
her.
have had to be old.
But so he knew her for like a few months and wrote her a play.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
I gotta think about what my favorite meme from third one is.
I mean, this one's all memes, so it's not my favorite meme, but I like when Eddie is the cab driver.
Oh my god.
And he says, "So, where to?" And then he just turns into Venom, I guess, and like Venom hands her, and it's like, what? Oh, wait. Harry eating pie, and she says, "How's the pie?"
of course.
And Harry goes, "It's so good." And then
No,
they
you hear
cut
the
back.
clink of the fork in his teeth. And
Yeah. And they cut back outside, and Harry just gives Peter a wink. The bus goes by,
Oh
and
my
he's
God.
gone. I think that might be like my favorite thing in this whole
I
movie.
think that's my favorite too.
Yeah.
That one's great because, like, he obviously just ducked under the table
Yeah.
for effect. Like, he doesn't have a power where he's super fast or can disappear or anything. Like, what would he think Peter thought happened?
I'm just imagining Peter like walking back into the restaurant, and Harry's just like,
Going up to the window, looking down.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
it's so fucking weird.
If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably when he's trying to call Mary Jane back and Ditkovich is staying there with an orange. He's like, orange? And then it's after the door scene where he's yelling at them,
Yeah.
at the door. He's like, sorry about last night. And he's like, if you feel that bad about it, you can buy me pizza sometime. That was good. And then he's talking about how he can't make up with, like, he's trying to make up with MJ and Ken. He's like, if it is a woman you are talking, just say, you are a good woman, I am a good man. And then he ends there. He's like, do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, that's such a good one. I love Ditkovich.
Classic.
Carol, I know you've only seen it once, but were there any standout points?
I think any side bang dance scene is, can't beat that. I loved the finger
Yeah.
guns. That is on replay in my head, unfortunately. Oh my god, we didn't talk about in detail for this film the frickin' French maitre d'.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good
That
scene, too.
scene
So
in
good.
general killed me, about how like
Yeah.
he walked up and he's like, it's a French restaurant, you don't speak French, as if every person who's ever gone to a French restaurant is fluent in French.
And then, like Marco said, the I am French
Yeah.
line,
Oh my
like
God.
that whole,
I am French, yeah.
all
And he
of the
keeps calling
best
him Pecker.
performances.
Yeah. That's what I said. Back there.
All of the best performances in these movies are the, like, super minor side characters.
comedy ones.
Yeah. And I like when he's rehearsing the scene before MJ gets there, he's like, because he's like planning to put the ring on the bottom of the glass. He's like, how'd that get in there?
He's so dumb. He's so clueless. Oh, something that is a line that like I quote all the time. That I don't even know if it's funny, but it's just when Peter says "You're trash, Brock."
Oh, yeah.
My siblings and I say that to each other constantly. Like if someone messes something up, it's just always "You're trash, Brock." Like I don't know why, but that line is.
You want forgiveness? Get religion.
And then he goes to church.
Then he goes to church. It's all
Ah,
tied together.
It's
yeah.
all genius.
Parker, you are such a Boy Scout.
Oh man,
We should probably wrap this up.
Oh my gosh.
guys, one
We've
This
year.
has
done
been
it
a
again.
hearty discussion.
Yeah.
I think it
Carol, I'm glad
only
you're
it
funny.
only makes sense that our anniversary episode is, one of the longer ones. I feel like it's more true to form
Yeah.
at this point for us. It shows our progression. We talked about all of the Lord of the Rings in like an hour and a half. And
How did we
now
even do that?
one single
No, not
film
even an hour and a
will
half.
have us talking for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
We're going to revisit. I don't know if we've said this yet on recording, but we are planning to eventually
Yes.
revisit the Lord of the Rings.
It's on our radar.
And have a more hearty discussion on that.
I was told I'll watch the extended ones and we'll tie that
Yes.
into the
Yeah,
conversation.
you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you again for anyone who, like, whether you've been in the audience the whole time or whether you're a newcomer, we appreciate it very much. And like I said in the intro, we just enjoy doing
It's
this
a blast.
anyway. So
We're something of podcasters ourselves. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of new fans because this is a Sam Raimi Spider-Man thing. It's so big on the internet, so I'm sure people are going to listen to this.
I hope they're not expecting like a like a professional analysis of each of the films.
I think we did that.
I think we did more than most. I think most people that talk about these movies are either like, they're dumb, or are like, these are the best movies of all time. And it's like, no, they're fun. They're just fun.
Oh, they are very fun.
Like, they
I
are...
love continuing to watch this series for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm glad they exist. This is up there with the prequel trilogy in terms of like meme rewatchable things.
Like Star Wars prequel?
I think they're better...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Star Wars prequel.
I think they're better in quality than the Star Wars prequels, but like in terms of, but I know what you mean in terms of like, they're just enjoyable. You know what I mean? You just put them on and you're like, I'm home. Yeah. I'm surrounded by things that I know every line of dialogue backwards and forwards.
Like you could make a flip book of all the memes and just recreate the movies.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
All right. Well, we should probably say like, because when this episode is coming out, like, Carol's on vacation and then I'm going to be on vacation. So I don't... Though there might be a little bit of a hiatus after this episode.
I think we've earned it.
Yeah,
I think
we have like
we've been doing this for a year.
two in the can, or we'll have 2 in the can if you include this one. But we'll probably need a week or 2. But then I'm going to be in the same city as the other 2 hosts. Ooh. So we'll also hopefully backlog some episodes then. So our schedule might be all over the place. But
also
some good stuff's coming.
Stuff's coming.
Yeah. But also this episode is coming out, I think, only 1 week after the previous episode. So it's kind of like that one's ahead. So there might be a little bit of a delay afterwards.
Yes. Yeah. We'll see. And we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're going to record when Kara's in town. But I would say, I mean, we might as well... Maybe we can talk about the Dark Knight trilogy when Carol's in town, because I feel like that would be a good one for us to be in person and talk about.
Yeah. Do that.
But,
and that was almost our choice for this episode.
Yeah. So. Fun fact, we were literally going to do the Dark Knight trilogy, and then I said, guys, what if we do the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy? And then
that is fact.
They know. That was what the intro was for.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It is based on a real conversation. It's not a lie.
Based on true events.
Sorry, the intro... that was an actual candid recording of our conversations after. Yeah. Definitely wasn't scripted. And
oh, no, I just took it from the recording afterwards.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for a great year. Excited for many more.
Woo!
See you next time. Hear you next time.
Hear you next time.